I have black streaming online. No, it's live. There's nothing streaming. There it is. Okay, logo. Go to logo. Go to logo. Yep.
I did the thumbs up to look like we were doing it deliberately.
fxguidetv Live from NAB 2012 is sponsored by The Foundry, developers of creative tools for artists, including Nuke, Hero, Mari, and more. This netcast is also made possible through the contributions of our FX Insider members.
Hello, I'm Angie Dale and welcome to FX Guide TV live from Las Vegas. We are here at the Foundry booth in the Lower South Hall, and all day we'll be broadcasting on the net with interviews, demos, user profiles and much more. This FX Guide TV live event is possible thanks to the support of people like you being FX Guide sponsors, and by one such key sponsor, the Foundry, who generously gave us an entire section of their booth and came on board to make this happen. Now a huge thanks to the Foundry and of course to you guys for making this happen. Check out more about being a sponsor and the cool gifts that you can receive and our new iPad app at fxguide.com.
Foundry and other stuff around the floor.
Well, thanks for that, Angie. And yes, we are here live in Las Vegas for 6 hours. Our first ever streaming live, and really excited, guys. Man,
Yeah,
we got a great
awesome.
day planned with a lot of great stuff.
Yeah, and it's thanks to you guys because we put out the word that we wanted support from you to do this. You guys responded in spades. In fact, it's been kind of humbling how much you guys have responded. It's just been awesome. So we're here because of those of you that contributed on Insider, and we're so looking forward to getting you a bunch of stuff, behind the scenes videos, all those things that we promised. And we've already started work on that iPad app, so that's brilliant. It's just terrific.
Yeah, it is, and of course, this wouldn't be possible also without the support of the Foundry, whose booth we're at, to have space as well as sponsorship, because things like that internet are really expensive, and we've got a lot of great stuff, content planned from here in their booth.
Right, as soon as we finish this little package and then go to another piece where I'm going to do a demo of Hero over on the Foundry booth, showing Hero and how we would use it in visual effects. And then after that, we've got a lot of stuff planned for the whole day. We've got reports from all over the show floor. We've got an RC Live segment covering camera technology, just
a blockbuster.
6 hours jam-packed. We've been working really hard.
So we're going to be doing stuff here. Obviously, we have some guests coming down. We're also going to be doing these great presentations from facilities around the world who have come here to present on the Foundry booth, and we'll be showing you the cool tech that we've found. And we'd like you to kind of interact with us if you can. So there are 2 ways that you can do that. The first is just scroll down on the page you're on now, and you'll see there's like a comment field, and we have super boffins that'll be like looking at that and feeding us stuff. And then the second thing is you can do it through Twitter. Now, John, how does somebody get a message to us through Twitter?
Yeah, so through Twitter, the use is through hashtag, and for those who don't know, that's that little pound sign or hash sign. And if you hit that, pound FXGNAB, hash FXGNAB. And what we have here is we have a little search filter, so we'll see all the tweets that include that hashtag. So we'll be monitoring both the site as well as the Twitterverse, so to speak, to answer any questions you have. And I think it's actually a great opportunity because one of the things we're going to try with the Foundry demos, and we've got some great ones like stuff from Girl with the Dragon Tattoo and DD ending the day. But one of the ideas is that during those presentations, if you have any kind of questions or anything like that, post that in the chat or Twitter, and we'll actually have a session with the artists afterwards where they'll hopefully answer that question for you. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, totally. And it's not just us, because we actually have our roving reporter, Jason Wingrove. So let's cross now to Jason, who's somewhere here at the NAB. Let's see if we can find Jason.
Thanks, guys. I'm out here between the halls where all the stuff that's way too big to fit inside is. Throughout the day, going to be crossing to me on the show floor where we sort of see all the cool stuff, and I'll try and make sense of it. However, I'm not quite sure what the heck this thing is.
Okay, so we've got a lot of stuff. You got a little taste of some of the stuff that we've been filming because we've actually been working hard. I know this feels like it's only day 2, the start of day 2, but in fact we were here on Saturday. Of course, Sunday there's a lot of stuff starting to roll out, conference and stuff, and then the trade show opened on Monday. But actually we've been filming stuff and doing stuff, all that, and in fact even last week in LA.
Yeah,
so.
yeah, and we've actually been working on it much longer than that because we've got a lot of interesting tech that we've got behind the scenes. We've got 3 Epic cameras here that are feeding. We're actually filming at 5K 1:3 to get a nicer field of view for some stuff. Those are all feeding into a Blackmagic Designs video switcher that then gets fed into Ustream software that allows us to do lower thirds, roll in packages, things like that, as well as do the actual streaming that you're looking at right now. And then on top of that, we've got like headsets for the camera guys, people talking in my ear, which will be interesting over the course of the day. And I don't know, it's just going to be a lot of fun.
Did I ever tell you about the first time I did live?
No, what was that?
About 6 minutes ago.
Really?
So we're going to be doing stuff, and what we're going to be doing is looking at, obviously, visual effects stuff, but also camera tech. It's like kind of a balance of stuff, feeding into what's going on.
You saw a lot of great stuff yesterday, too, at the show.
Yeah, no, what's nice about NAB, of course, is the people. We get to meet people, and there are, of course, a lot of really interesting tech things here. And so we're going to have those. We're actually going to bring down some cameras for you to look at that are brand new that launched the show, like the Blackmagic one. I know people have been twittering us and asking us about that. But we've also been looking at a lot of other stuff around the booth. And I actually got to some sessions yesterday, John, and one of the most interesting sessions of that was a session on Titanic stereo conversion. So Rob Legato was here for something else we're going to show you about later in the show here. But Rob Legato hung around for this panel on the stereo conversion of Titanic. And if you think about it, it's a pretty big exercise. Not only was it a massive film, but you had Jim Cameron as the guy who's the director, who's probably one of the world's best-known stereographers, over your shoulder going, okay, this is how I want the stereo to work. And I got to tell you, stereo separating out smoke and smoke elements and stuff, and all those water ripples into 3D is a pretty difficult job.
Yeah, it is really fascinating, and it's good that we've got a lot of coverage that similar to that we're showing throughout the day. Like say interviews, we're going to talk to actually the Speed Grade team from Adobe. I actually had a nice opportunity to head up to Seattle so we get some insight into that, the first release of that new color grading software that's going to be coming out sometime in the next couple months when they release CS6, and as well as a lot of other segments. And like, of course, in that Blackmagic news was a big one actually yesterday. Yeah, the Blackmagic kind of came out of the blue a little. Actually, we did have a heads up about it, but it's a camera that basically, I think, John, is like Scarlett was going to be. It's virtually 3K for 3K, which was the slogan that Red had a while ago. They put that to one side and said, no, we're not doing that. So Blackmagic has come in with this camera that you could either think of as what the original Scarlett was going to be, or a baby Alexa, because it's got a SSD on the back, which can record in RAW, but also in ProRes or DNx HD. At the front end, it's got a Canon mount. But the reason I say it's a bit like the original Scarlett is it only has the 4/3 inch sensor, so it's actually a reduced sensor size. So it's not, like a full frame, which means, of course, that for some nuts like our own Jason Wingrove, who likes it fully wide open on a big soft shallow, you're not going to get that. But for a bunch of other people, here's a camera that can record like an hour of RAW on the card. And I think it's interesting too if you look at their strategy, though, finishing, infrastructure, acquisition. So I think from an overall company standpoint, I think that's quite interesting. Yeah, and let's face it, incredibly aggressively priced. We'll look about it more when later in the show, but I mean, this is a camera that they're giving away a whole copy of DaVinci Resolve with, and the scope software. Yeah, so it ends up being the actual camera is actually far less than it seems when you initially look at the price. So yeah, it's astonishing. Yeah, quite amazing ripples that are happening here at NAB based. But we've also got the Canon 500, the new version of the C500, which is the C300 turned into a 500. And we've got, I don't know, there's new stuff from Codex, but there's also new stuff coming from Red, though that is pretty complicated way. I mean, we're going to cover the Red stuff in the middle of the thing, but that's pretty complicated. And then in terms of post workflow, as some of you would have seen yesterday, we actually posted what the original Nothing Real crew have been up to, which, as it turns out, is stereo conversion. Yeah, it really is. Well, we're wrapping up here at this intro part, and we're ready to get to Jeff with our first Nuke demo today. It's actually Jeff Huser, John Walton from the Foundry, as well as Nash. And they're going to be taking a look at the integration between Hero and Nuke and everything. So let's go ahead and cross on over to our pal Jeff to kick off FX Guide Live TV at NAB.
Okay, and actually Anthony's going to start off.
Good morning, everyone. Is it on? Are we on? Yep. Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Hero presentation. I'm joined today with Jeff Huser from FX Guide and John Walton. And this is kind of a first for me because it's my first televised three-way in Vegas, so I'm pretty excited about it. Just to give you an overview of the chat today, of the talk, I'll give a quick introduction to Hero and where it sits, where it fits. Jeff's also going to sort of talk about how he sees Hero fitting into the VFX space. And then we're going to see a demo, a round-trip demo with Hero and Nuke with Jeff and John. And we'll finish up with a little bit of a what's next for Hero. So this slide really just demonstrates where Hero fits in the VFX space. So typically we start off in an editorial. You get your EDL, your XML file from Final Cut or Premiere or whatever you're working with. And then the next step really is to do the conform. So Hero has a very quick conform system. We can conform from EDL and XML. So we bring in the shots, do all the conform, and the next step would be to send these shots out for VFX. So depending on which application you're using, Nuke, After Effects, etc., how do you get these shots out to VFX? So it can be quite a painful process. You've got to do lots of folder structure setup and getting all the right frame ranges, etc. How do we make this process simpler? Once the VFX work gets done, you're going to want to see those shots back in context. So this is kind of a round-tripping process with editorial and VFX. So you get your version up and down. And there's, again, this back and forth process of getting the best shot. Then the final step really is once you've got those VFX selects, how do you get them out to finishing? Again, we've got this sort of back and forth process between going between editorial and finishing. And this can be, again, very, very error-prone and very monotonous process. So what we've done with Hero is try to solve that problem, these problems. So Hero sits at the center of those three things, and it really binds those three things together. And we'll see a demo in a minute about how we can work with Nuke and Hero to do a bit of round-tripping. So yeah, it's really the hub between editorial, VFX, and finishing. So just an overview of what it is and what it is not. It doesn't have a finishing system in there. There's no grading. We have basic editorial, but it's not an editor. And there's no VFX in there. But what it is a VFX timeline. It's a very intelligent, lightweight shot management for VFX. It allows you to do conform, review the shots in context, export your shots for your VFX teams or finishing teams, and finally send out the timelines for delivery. So how does it do that? Well, these are all the things which Hero does, and we'll see in a minute in the demo. So it conforms from EDL and XMLs. We've got this round-tripping process through a very powerful export system. We're able to manage versions of clips and timelines and snapshots, etc. We can then export EDLs and XMLs and bake out selects through transcoding, etc. It's also very open and scriptable, so Python is built throughout the application, and it really allows you to integrate Hero into your existing pipeline. And what does Hero do for you? Well, all those things, it means that it can free up your finishing system to do the stuff which finishing systems are supposed to do, which is do finishing, not monotonous tasks. It can remove a lot of the complicated, error-prone manual process that you get a lot of time with dealing with shots around the facility. It allows you to peace of mind of the review process and easily version up and down your renders of your VFX shots. And all of this will allow you to save time and money and allow more jobs to get through the facility and become more productive. So I've done a lot of talking. I want to pass over to Jeff now. Jeff's been conforming and finishing for decades and decades. And so he's going to talk a little bit about where he sees Hero fitting in. So over to Jeff.
Thank you. I'm going to breeze through this graphic because we kind of just covered a lot of this. You know, as we know, now more things are file-based, so we have the plates coming in, we need to ingest them. We conform those plates. We do the visual effects. And this is where I see the big crisis, is the whole daily review thing. What are you doing? Are you going to an Avid to put the cut together? Where are you seeing stuff in the cut? It's always been this EDL to another edit system, and then no back and forth, and then back to you know, daily updates. Who's doing that? And you're tying up expensive machines to do that. And the visual effects supervisor is kind of losing control of that process. So I see Hero fitting in and really replacing the whole process, and then even preparing the stuff for the finish. So let's just jump into an actual project. Demo time. So I'm going to be doing stuff, and I'm going to pass some stuff to John, and he's going to pass it back to me, and we'll show the process at work. So like any good job, there'll be audio. This starts with the off-gun. We've gotten the rough cut from the client. You can bring the sound up.
Night exteriors to test some of the latest camera gear. So we sent Mike, Jason, and Tyler out on the streets to capture the flavour of the Vegas Strip.
Okay, we'll watch the finished product, but I just want to give you a basic idea. A lot of pretty footage we shot with the red camera out in the streets of Vegas. So let's cut out here and let's go right into Hero. Okay, I launched Hero, and I'm going to start a new project. And like all of us do with everything we start, we of course immediately save the project. Okay, and the first thing we're going to do is we've seen our offline, but now we've gotten an XML from the editor. Oops. And we bring that in. And this could be an XML or an EDL. And I could also drag and drop it. I'm doing it this way just so you can kind of get a peek at some of the menus as I'm doing it. So I open that, and there is my timeline with my footage. I can play this and have the audio from it too as well.
I thought Las Vegas was the perfect backdrop for shooting night exteriors to test some of the latest cameras.
So you can see even down here, you've actually got the audio track. There's the there's the trucks and the people sound. You can see down here all the audio layers came in. So that's great. So now the first thing I want to do is snapshot that. That's my initial conform. These are the offline quality plates. Let me scroll down here farther so you can see. These are the ungraded plates. They popped right in because they were done in the same system. Let me just talk about the windows here a little bit real quick. This is your starting environment. There's 3 preset environments. You can build your own. This is the conforming environment. There's conforming, editing, and reviewing. And up here you have your player. And just like Nuke, you have hotkeys for tilt. Any one of these can jump forward real quickly. We have a spreadsheet type view of the EDL, of the XML, and it can give you a lot of information that you might need to diagnose problems. As we all know, conforms are usually problematic. Always something wrong, always something missing. So there we have the timeline view, project stuff, and these are bins just like your normal bins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a snapshot here to basically tell myself this is this point in time in the project that I can always come back to exactly the state of Nuke. Hero, sorry, old habits. Okay, so I'm going to just call this XML just so I know what it is. Sorry about that, XML, and hit add. Okay, so now I can go back later and I'll show you that. Okay, so now I've got the reference movie still, and I just want to verify that everything's cool with this. So I'm going to just bring in the reference media that we looked at before, which is under here, this. And now you'll see it's going to add a track underneath my movie. And if I turn off this track, underneath you'll see there's my offline. And now, once again, I can go up here and use my Nuke type tools like W for, oops, wait, sorry, missed a step. Got to set a reference here so I can tell it to use that as a reference. And jump back to the beginning. I'm just going to go to that shot. Okay, so I can do the same thing. So now, and I can use F and H just like you would in Nuke. And now I'm going to hit wipe, W. And now you can see I've got a wipe tool, so I can do that if I want to check my work to make sure everything's exactly frame accurate. If you prefer, you can turn that on, and that can rotate. You can also do a horizontal stack, side by side, and you can actually watch the cut like that. Or you can do a vertical stacking, if that makes you happier. And again, you can always go back to the tilde key, toggle. So you can see it's very quick to move around, very flexible, very fast, and the results have been already really good. So now we've gotten our graded plates. They've gone to the colorist, and the colorist has turned us back a set of graded plates. So I'm going to select everything in the timeline, and I'm going to do match media. And I'm going to point to my graded plates folder. And these are QuickTime ProRes right now. I'm on a Mac. They could be DPX sequences, EXRs. They could be anything that Nuke reads, Hero reads. They have the same engines on the input and output, so anything you can read on one generally reads on the other. So I hit open. And now this is the first chance we get to look at the options. As you know, in conforming, oftentimes you'll find conflicting information. Maybe you need to narrow down. Maybe the real name's wrong. You want to get rid of that. So you have a lot of flexibility there. I'm also going to check this box, which tells me since there's already media here, let's replace that now with the graded shots. And I hit OK. And there you see the color graded plate change right there on the screen in front of you. So now we have the graded plates. And again, just to be that kind of guy, I'm going to add a snapshot here. I'm going to say graded. So now I have those two snapshots in time. I'll even save my project just because that's how I roll. So now I've got my graded plates. Oh, I have to also match Angie. Angie's plate I happen to know is in a different directory. And this actually shows a really nice feature. If I go to my hero directory, I got this Angie. I've got a DPX folder. So now I'm going to replace Angie's offline footage with the DPX frames. And I've also got the end title in there. And what I'm showing you here is that it will replace the Angie footage with the DPX files. Now I've got the higher quality images there. And it also replaced the end title down here at the end of the timeline. So it didn't replace the clips that weren't in that folder because it knows it's only looking for those two clips. So very, very nice for replacing the clips in the timeline. Okay. So now, I probably should have done a snapshot again, but I'm going to skip that. So now I'm going to go and rename these shots. So if you're in a facility, generally there's going to be a file structure that has to be followed, code assigned to the shots or something. So I'm going to go in and select my timeline again and click on the right click here and do a rename shots. And I'm going to use the code LV for Las Vegas. And I don't want a 4-digit thing. I want 3. And I'm starting the sequence at 10, so it'll be LV010. And I'm going to increment by 10s so that when they add shot 5, we can, or shot 15, or in between those two, we can always do that easily. Hit rename. So now, if you look at the timeline, this is one of the features when I first saw it demoed. I was like, oh, how much time do you spend opening up the clips, renaming clips, exporting those clips? So just like that, I've renamed every clip in the timeline, and that's now assigned to that clip. So now, let's do a snapshot just because we can. And this will be named. Add.
Okay, so now the next step is to get these shots out to the visual effects team. So to do that, I'm going to select again my clips, and now I'm going to go right-click, and I'm going to say Export. And this brings up a dialog we haven't seen yet, and I'm going to make it bigger for you. So the first option it's set to is process as sequence. If I wanted to export the entire timeline now, let's say I want to send the graded conform to the client or to the director, whatever, to see, or just wanted to evaluate it, we could export it to sequence. I'm going to switch to process as shots, and I'm going to switch to, where's my setup's not there.
Sorry. Do that for now.
Hang on a second.
Okay. Leave that one for now.
There it is. Okay. So now I'm going to export these. And if you look at this, I've got my shot. It's going to create the shot. So it's going to do LV010. It's going to start a plates directory. It's going to do a file name. It's going to create a nukes folder and actually make a nuke script there. Oh, I should go back here. On the plates, you see it says sim link generator. If you don't want to create new media for those plates, you just want to create a directory with symbolic links, you can do that. Hang on a second. We're fixing one thing here. Does it matter?
Yep.
Is that all right? Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. So now we've also got renders. We're telling this is actually should be comp. Sorry, we lost a setup there somewhere overnight. So we're telling it where the comp directory is and how they should be named, so that all the artists now follow that structure, and now Nuke will understand, or Hero will understand that structure.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yep.
Oh, sorry, I forgot the keywords over there. Hang on.
Gremlins.
Demos.
There you go.
Always. While he's doing that, I'll mention at the bottom of that box on the left, you'll see clip length, cut length, number of frames of handles. Save. If I do cut length, and I can set the number of frames to include or apply retimes. A lot of flexibility built in here. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit export. Oh, I got to set my, I saved that. Let me see this. I've got to set my path to where I want to shoot this to. And I'm going to make a shots directory.
Yeah.
Okay, so now I've defined that shots, all that stuff's fine, and now I'm going to select plates, and I'm going to hit export. Okay, so now very quickly, since there's symbolic links, it didn't have to copy the media, it's just doing a pointer to the media. It's exported all those plates out into that directory structure, and now we're ready for our visual effects to start. So we can take a break, and we can let John show you what happens next.
Cool, thanks, Jeff. Awesome. So we're going to switch over from the Mac to the Linux box, which I'm on. So we've got like a mini network sharing thing going on here. So we've got the main Mac here, we've got a Linux box here, we've got Deke out the back on another Linux box working on shots. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to that shared location where Jeff exported those plates, and we're going to have a look what we've got in there. So let's have a look. Client presentations, Hero, and there's that shots folder that Jeff exported to. And you can see there it's created all those folders exactly as he specified in his template. So let's look inside one of these guys. Inside, so we've got our Nuke folder. We've got our After Effects folder. And actually, Nuke doesn't, Hero doesn't ship with an After Effects converter, but we actually kind of knocked one up for the show here. And that was just done with Python, and we did this together with Jeff. So it's not just about being able to export just to Nuke. You could, pick another, to Maya or to After Effects or whatever. So there's an After Effects project there for doing titling or whatever, but because this is Linux, I can't show it firing up After Effects because it doesn't run on Linux. But Nuke does, so let's go and open up our Nuke script up there. Or what else have we got there? We've got the comp folder, so that's where the finished renders are going to go when I'm done. And then we've also got our plates folder where all of those DPX files, symlinks are. So already this is saving me heaps of time because I don't need to hunt around and look for all that footage. Like as you saw before when Jeff was doing the conform and pulling in those plates, some of the shots were in different folders around the place, but now they're all kind of sitting in one place and it's all organized for me and I don't have to hunt and look around for stuff. So let's open up Nuke, and I'm going to work on shot 1. So let's open up that folder and the nuke script. Here we go, shots, 1, nuke, script, comp. So straight away you can see Hero has generated like a template nuke script for me to start working on. So if we look at that, we're pointing to those sim-linked plates. So that's already set up, ready to go. We've got like a frame range thing in here to set the frame range. So there's a thing in Hero where you can set like soft handles in the timeline. So that would allow those handles to come through, so I don't have to see the whole the range of the clip. And then we've got some stuff about time code just to make sure it's set to the same time code as in Hero. Finally, normally, which I don't know why, normally there's a write node in the bottom of here to write out those plates back into the place that Jeff specified. But we had some little gremlins deleting our template overnight, so I don't know why that's not there. But there is normally a write node in the bottom, and that goes back into the comp folder where the final render plates would be. So it means I don't have to think about stuff and render them out and put them to the right to find out where I should put the rendered clips. It's already set up for me by Jeff, so all I have to do is pull a key on this thing and then I'm done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring in the fxguide keying template for Angie, and I've got that saved as a tool set here in Nuke. So if I just hit go on that gives me my keying template. And then it's pretty simple for me just to hook up Angie to the Angie node and then hook up the final write node, if it was there, to the end there. And now I should get my key pulled on Angie. And look how simple it is. Look how good key light is. It's perfect. I think it's because her hair is really nice, and that's why I can pull such a good key on her. So I'm not going to sit through and do the renders on this. But you can imagine I could do a render of this. I could do multiple different versions of that as we go along. And then Jeff can really easily pull in those renders after I've done them. And also at the back, Deke could be working. I think one of these shots, he's added some fireworks with some particles in Nuke. That should come in as well. So I think now, how are you guys going?
We're having a little trouble.
We're chasing the gremlin. Hang on a second. I think I
gremlin.
just spotted what it might be. I can't believe that got deleted on us.
So I guess the other thing to say was what Jeff was talking about before, is that all of the file readers and writers are exactly the same as Nuke. Under the hood, we use the same readers and writers, so you get the same look as things are coming in and out. And all the same formats, read and write the same formats.
Hang on just 1 second. So sorry. All right, let's try this.
Okay.
All right, we'll try it.
Should we swap back to you, Jeff?
Yeah, we should swap back.
Okay.
I think it may not work, in which case
Okay.
we will be
So
very sad, but...
Done the renders, and we're going back.
There's a start to the day. Comp. No. Okay. Hang on a second. Let me just check something here.
Can we just...
We can talk about the...
Just check something here. No? Hang on. Well, I'm going to have to talk through what should be happening. Check 2 other projects here and see if it came in. No. Open. All right, we're just going to have to talk through what should happen. So what happens next, normally, I apologize, is that we would build the external track, and what we'd get is another track above the video track called VFX. And this first shot has a couple different versions of the comps that have been done. Let me show you that. So the team has done 4 different versions of the comp, their DPX sequences, and I can I would load those up, and then they would appear in the timeline as one element, and I can alt-up arrow to get to comp 2, just like you would in Nuke. Alt-up arrow to go to comp 2, alt-up arrow. So you have your 4 comps. Try something. And go ahead. Help?
Okay.
Will it work?
So you're going to talk about it?
Hang on just 1 second. I think we can get... We're going to try something here. Oh, there you go.
Okay.
All right, there we go. All right, so see, there you go. So now you can switch, and we can say this. We started out with Angie in her normal Sydney location. We thought we'd try her in a Las Vegas background. Didn't like that. Thought we'd try another Vegas background. In the end, we ended up going back to Sydney. And we added her name super, and that's what goes in the final piece. So that's the idea. So and you can see then we can now export that sequence, and the visual effects supervisor can sit there and he can change the timings if they want to. They can trim. It's a full editor, so if they want to go in and start trimming shots, let's say you're doing CG on top of these plates, and you want to. Now the timings come in. You know, the action now doesn't fit the cut. The VFX supervisor can actually go in and edit the timings by using traditional editing techniques. You know, it's a full timeline editor down here. So sorry about the problems in the demo, but that's the basic goal. Let me just show you the final piece.
Hello, I'm Angie Dale. Now, we thought Las Vegas was the perfect backdrop for shooting night exteriors to test some of the latest camera gear. So we sent Mike, Jason and Tyler out on the streets to capture the flavour of the Vegas Strip.
Okay. So thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Anthony. He's going to tell a bit more about the future of Hero, where Hero's heading next.
Cool. Okay, so thanks, John and Jeff. Sorry about the technical hitches there. That's the beauty of live broadcast, I guess. I want to talk to you about what's coming up next for Hero. So we've got some maintenance releases coming up in the next quarter. Lots and lots of bug fixes, lots of improvements, things like audio export, burn-ins, reconform improvements, and 3.2 pull-down as well. And then the next major release is going to have STI out for broadcast monitor output. We're going to have Windows support, multi-channel image support, and also Arri RAW camera support. And there's also going to be one more addition to the Hero family, which I want to talk to you about now. So, you know, we've got this lovely, powerful shot management tool, Hero. It sends the shots out to VFX. We can bring these shots back in and version up and down very easily. And, you know, one of the questions that the artists want to know is how can I view those shots, my single shots, in the context of the edit? Because Hero's got a lovely timeline view. We can see shots and versions very easily. And we think one of the answers to that to give to the VFX artists is a new product called Hero Player. And what Hero Player does is it allows you to open up Hero projects on VFX workstations. It will allow artists to view their shots in context. of the conform timeline. It's going to have the same powerful image and audio playback engine as Hero, and we're also going to have local file caching for lots of people working collaboratively on VFX work. And it complements Hero, and it integrates with Nuke and other VFX tools as well, because it's going to have Python scripting. So, just to recap really, Hero is a 2D pipeline in a box for visual effects. We think it's a really unique missing link technology which binds VFX, editorial, and finishing. The Foundry doesn't stand still. We're very busy developing new stuff for Hero, so we've got a really aggressive development cycle, and we just very quickly touched on Hero Player, which is a new application for VFX artists to view their shots in context. So that's it, really. One more thing to say is that the Windows beta is now available online, so you can grab that from the website. And thank you very much for listening. Cheers. Okay, great.
I'm sorry. So we're going to do a little Q&A here. If you have any questions, we can answer them. John Montgomery from the live broadcast is joining us, and you should be able to hear him as well.
Yeah, we actually have some questions from online, actually, and I think it relates a little bit to the future. Someone was asking, obviously, as a pipeline tool makes sense, but they were asking about exploring the possibility of shotgun support within the application.
So we've already seen customers using Hero to actually already integrate with Shotgun. So because we've got this open Python scripting in Hero, it's not too much effort to actually integrate Shotgun already, and things like Tactic as well. So we have March Entertainment on the booth later, who's showing how they've integrated it with Tactic as well. So yeah, we're really open to people using other tools to talk to Hero. That's what it's all about, really, collaboration and using other third-party tools. So
if the demo had worked, we would have shown at the end of the demo, we would have showed adding tags. If any of you remember Storm, there was an elaborate tagging system, and using those tags to put things like green screen, roto, assigning artists to shots, using those as tags, and now that's all metadata, and Hero supports Python, so it's all very, in a facility that has somebody who can work with that Python, you can really integrate it well to systems like that.
I want to point out that anyone who has any questions here will get some free FX Guide swag. We have some limited edition hats if you have any questions, so I don't know if you have any questions after watching the demo as well, but we can get them answered with these guys.
Let me say too, before, if somebody has a question right now, the reason the demo didn't work is Hero expects, as we would, as any facility would, a very strict order, naming system, structure of folders, and what happened was the script that we needed to do all that somehow is gone. We did this demo yesterday, it was flawless.
It was great.
And we didn't have time to run through it again this morning before the demo because we were setting up for the live broadcast.
But I just want to say, it doesn't expect to have everything always in a particular order. It's just that for your facility, you can set a template for how the folder should be structured. And we set that template to be not the default, the special one that Jeff always uses, but then that template wasn't there, so it didn't know where to look for it.
Right, it couldn't find the footage, and there was no easy global replace without rebuilding that hierarchy and that menu you saw me messing with. So.
Someone online also had another question kind of relating to hardware and the OpenCL support and things across the various platforms. They were kind of questioning and wondering if it was the equivalent overall, the kind of performance and support for that.
So in terms of performance now, we've got some of the readers for Hero have been optimized to playback. So DPX, EXR, and QuickTimes have been optimized over the Nuke readers, so they're going to play back a lot faster. In terms of OpenCL, we've obviously got a high-performance computing team at the Foundry that are working on making things run faster all the time. So Bruno Nicoletti fronts that, and he's really keen on making stuff go faster. But we're constantly looking at ways of getting stuff faster in terms of caching. We're going to have a new media pool layer to make things run really fast later in the year as well. So yeah.
The other thing I want to say about that is as well is that when we bring the files in, it does a similar thing to Nuke, as in all the files get put into linear light space, and then a viewer light applied. That gets done all in the GPU in Hero. So there's no software conversion, so that makes we can do that real-time playback because all the linearization and then the viewer light gets done on the GPU.
Yeah.
So that's speeds it up a lot.
Yeah.
And then one other thing, in just talking to people, it seems like the perception is you only have to have Nuke with this, and obviously it's really set up for that. But I mean, can you just speak to that a little bit? Because it is something that I hear a lot.
Sure. Well, I mean, part of the demo we wanted to show as well was the After Effects exporter. So because we've got Python scripting in there, you can effectively write scripts to go out to, to After Effects, to Maya, whatever other tools you're working with. It's not designed just to be with Nuke, because the Foundry is about being very open and collaborative. So we want to try and, VFX work is not just done on one system all the time, so we're not sort of closing you into using Nuke. So yeah, it's really
if
about...
the demo had worked,
yeah.
we would have shown exporting a script that After Effects could have opened, which would have done the same thing as we did in Nuke, where you see After Effects would have the plate as a read in the time code set and all ready to go. So the artist would just be able to open the After Effects script and start working on the shot.
Now, I just want to relate also a story. If you put you on the spot with this, the first time that Bruno showed us this software and our reaction to it, which I thought was pretty amusing, and
I got chills. I was like, somebody, they went off and did this, and it's like my dream. I mean, it was like literally, this is something I've wanted for a long time, because I do feel that process in the middle of the whole post thing, from conform to review to finish, it's just broken. It's been odd. It's always an awkward. It's different every facility. You have people doing it in Final Cut, After Effects, on Flames, tying up more expensive workstations. It just seems to me like, and it's out of the hands of the visual effects supervisor. And maybe some people want that. That's fine. But I like to work very hands-on, and I really like the idea of being able to get in there and tweak the edit. Because like I say, a lot of times you're doing a lot of CG on top of plates, or even just CG playing, and things change. You start to see how scenes cut together once you start getting the real animation. Even if the gray shaded renders have been coming in, when you start seeing the real thing, you start going, oh, I want to keep that little moment there. And if you're using, now you've got a new loop, a new process. You've got your original EDL, now you got this thing going on. And the nice thing is with Hero, you can take that final timeline and export an EDL from it. So the conform could be literally call it that EDL, and the plates that have been exported that match it, and you're ready to start doing your finishing in the finishing system.
Okay, I'm going to put you on the spot now maybe a bit, because the natural thing is to look at this software and go, well, it looks like an editor.
Yeah.
And it looks like, you want to add this and that and that. I mean, what kind of discussions? I mean, it's a tough balance to be focused on that workflow pipeline, make sure that works really well, right, as opposed to adding these other features that this wasn't.
Like you say, it looks like an editor. It has basic editing tools, and you can cut clips together and trim them and everything else you'd expect from an editor. But the real power of it is the export process, the round tripping processes that you can get with Hero. And also just the speed of the conform as well is really, really quick. So it's much more than just an editor. It's a lot more powerful. And the fact that people are extending it via Python as well to talk to their shotgun system or their tactic or their asset management system, it really is another level of, it's pipeline of editorial really. It's not just an editor. It's a lot more than that. So.
Yeah, exactly. And again, that idea you point out of stuff just taking that shot-based and be able to see everything in context and see it is actually really important.
Well, and automate so many processes. Yeah. I mean, automating that naming of the clips, I mean, that's such a tedious process in any other process.
Yeah, and in a facility, like leaving that up to individual artists to do is going to wreak havoc on the pipeline, as I know from personal experience, having done that myself. So, anyone have any questions or anything for these guys at all? No T-shirts for you. Oh, yeah, actually, we'll come over here. Get you on mic so everyone can hear it.
Can it play out to a broadcast monitor in real time with audio?
So we're planning on getting SDI monitor output support later in the year, so yes. Yep.
See how easy that is.
Wow. Nice.
All right, well, if no one else has any questions, we really want to thank you guys for the demo and the show and kicking off our 6 hours of live coverage here. And catch Mike's eye over here, send it over to here. What's coming up next, Mike?
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys. Really appreciate it. Hey, the thing I just threw out in the audience was one of these FX Guide hats. These are the limited edition hats that are part of the program that we did to be able to do this. This is one of the thank you gifts. Now, we have a bunch of these, because of the minimum order requirements to meet the demand for the stuff you guys generously donated. So if you're here at the show, come on down, pester me when I'm not live, and we might be able to give out some of these and some Foundry T-shirts and some other stuff. But if you're not here at NAB and you're thinking, that sucks because I can't get a hat, if you wanted to, you can still donate to our program that was set up for this and our iPad app, and that's on our website, and feel free to do that. And of course, depending on what level you're at, you'll get gifts from us like this hat, like the jacket, and you can even do FX PhD. Now in a second we're going to play the FX PhD rundown of some of the stuff that's coming up this turn. But before we get to that, I just want to discuss a bit more. Hey, John. a bit more about some stuff and do a promo for what's coming up after that. So in about 15 minutes from now, we're going to be doing an interview with the Fusion IO guys. Now, this is, I guess, ordinarily something I wouldn't get excited about, but I've actually got really excited about this. And John, you were there for that launch as well.
Yeah, it was a really exciting piece of technology, and I have to say I've been using, had the opportunity to actually use the new version of Adobe After Effects that has this thing, Global Performance Cache is what they're calling it, which does some really interesting caching in the background to speed up interactivity within After Effects. I switched from a hard drive into an SSD, and man, I got to tell you, the speed was incredible, the kind of increase in speed you got with just an SSD, and this thing blows SSDs out of the water.
Yeah, and I was talking to the Foundry guys before. They've also got one here on the stand, and they're using it extensively with Mari. Now, Mari's got some really huge gains, and what we're talking about here is, and you'll hear about this in the interview in about 15 minutes' time, 10x improvement. And that 10x improvement is because it's basically sits between what you might think of as a hard drive or even an SSD hard drive and just straight RAM. It's like you just basically pimp out your machine in a way that's unbelievable. But it's not just here at the Foundry. And by the way, they were saying to me that Hero clobbers that mother, and so it is going to get some really great performance, and you can stack up multiple cards. But also I've seen it, Simulate's got them, Sony for 4K playback, gosh, Autodesk, like a lot of, do you know how many? There's like quite a lot of people here at the show.
They had 14, they actually had a spare briefly that I was going to walk off with. And but yeah, it's actually become, I think from that standpoint and the stuff that you do with visual effects and playback, especially like stereoscopic high-res stuff, it's going to be critical with those 1.5 gigabyte read per second.
Yeah, so all that's coming up in about 15 minutes. And also, as I said, we're going to give you a bit of a rundown of what's going on. But this is, as you know, going out live because you're watching it, but it's also being repeated. And I just want to say huge, big, I freaking love you to the 450 people that were here when we started first thing this morning. If you guys could do us a favor, though, and start twittering this, it'd be great for us because, of course, I haven't got any free time to Twitter myself.
Yeah.
But, yeah, if you Twitter, and now, again, if you want to ask us questions, of which you just had some for that thing.
Yeah, it was really great that you do that. And, again, we're here on camera a lot, so we get to them and check in on the chats and on the Twitter accounts as well to do it. But I think it will really be interesting and bring that aspect to it. I mean, one of the ideas behind FX Guide and starting out, we used to do these training things here for Flame Master classes back in the day.
So true story, we're actually out at dinner at the House of Blues, and we were sitting around. Yeah, Martin was there, and Jeff, and we're like, hey, this FX Guide thing seems to be working, we should like take it on the road. And the trouble with that was, well, it was brilliant, and we loved doing them. We had like, what, 300 people?
Yeah.
Now with this, as I said already, like straight out of the gate, we hit 450. That's not even counting what's happening here, and of course the repeat. So this allows us to get to a much wider audience. And for those of you maybe can't get to America to experience what it's like and learn about some of the new tech.
Yeah, exactly. So take advantage of the opportunity to do that, and we'll help you out. I know what we're going to do too after a little break is we're going to run down a schedule of what's coming up throughout the day, tell you how far away they are in, say, hours with our schedule. So we'll cover that here in just a bit so that you can know what we've got planned if you've got to actually do some work during the day as opposed to sit and watch this coverage nonstop.
But of course, it wouldn't be John and I if we didn't talk to you a little bit about FX PhD because, of course, just like here with the Foundry, we're really keen to help you guys kind of lift your game and get wherever you want to be. And one of the great ways that obviously we've managed to do that with the community is FX PhD, which means, of course, that you can basically learn online. Now, we've got a lot of stuff from the first term, whatever that was, where we only had like, I think, 8 courses.
Eight courses, and we're up to actually 90 courses that are actually available from which to choose from. So,
and if you don't know, they split into 2 sort of sections, really. There are those that are happening on a term basis, which means that you can basically do stuff so that you can get it immediately. They come out, it's brand new, it's happening in front of you as you kind of watch it. That's on a weekly basis. That's the normal term stuff, and we tend to focus on that new course stuff. But then there's a bunch of other courses that are maybe introductory courses or just courses that have been published before that are available on download. So kind of range of stuff, but of course it's basically primarily post-production with a little bit of stuff to do, of course, with camera tech, cameras, production, and of course just general stuff which we throw in that background course that I'm notoriously involved with.
Yeah, exactly. And so what we're doing is we're going to show little segments from some highlights from what we're offering at FX PhD this term. And the first part of this is actually going to cover some of our After Effects compositing and motion graphics course. And now, when we did this before, it was before they announced CS6. And I just want to point out that some of the stuff that we're covering in the After Effects course is going to be hardcore in some of the new features, both how the hash cache stuff that I was talking about before is useful for you, as well as if you look at the upcoming, there's some 3D stuff and stuff going on. That's actually going to use some of the environment mapping and ray tracing and 3D models and shapes they're available to you within After Effects to actually get the job done, which I think is quite interesting. We can kind of spill the beans about that a bit, which we were unable to do in the time when we did this.
I got to tell you, we had so many NDAs leading up to this show and the new term, and I would literally like be talking to John, and then he'd phone me back and go, okay, that one was confidential. I forgot to mention that. And then we go, okay, great. And I'd be, oh, by the way, we can't announce that until the 9th. And if you look on the FX Guide site, there was quite a lot of stuff that we sort of rolled out on the Monday morning, which is unusual because we just had so much kind of stuff stacked up. And a lot of stuff we're going to be putting into today. But let's have a look at the FX PhD stuff, because I'm obviously extraordinarily proud of it, as I know you are. But we just want to also flag just how wonderful the professors are who give their time to do it.
Hi, and welcome to the April 2012 Orientation Week video. I'm John Montgomery. We've got a fantastic lineup of new courses this term at FX PhD, covering things from Nuke to Mocha version 3 to Flame and Smoke. And Mike's going to be talking about a new camera tech course later in this. But first, we're going to start out with the reason I'm here in New York City, and that's here filming plates for a new After Effects project-based course that's actually going to cover 2 terms, both here in April and in July. Danny Prince returns to lead the course. Let's go ahead and join him and hear what he's got planned for this term.
Thanks, John. I'm Danny Prince, and I'm very excited to be back this term. This is After Effects 218, and I'm here with my co-director on the project, Jason Diamond.
Glad to be here. We're going to be working together on this project along with my brother, Josh Diamond, as the Diamond Brothers. Yes. And we're going to be doing a really awesome project for a movie trailer called Chutes and Ladders, with just wanton destruction by very happy-go-lucky giant board game figures in New York City.
So we're looking at getting some really great footage, and we're going to have Lloyd Alvarez as well, doing some of the title design and helping out on the course. And Michelle Higa is going to be also in the course, doing some of the character animation.
My name is Michelle Higa. I'm a director and animator. I've worked a lot under the name Mixtape Club. I'm also the assistant editor at Motionographer, and I'm really excited to be part of this course. I'm going to be working with very talented character designer Aaron Stewart, and we're going to show you how to take a character made in Illustrator, bring it into After Effects, and work with the puppet tool and a lot of expressions to figure out how to make him totally riggable and get a lot of the mileage you get out of flash animation, where the characters are turning and have a lot of perspective and matching your camera footage, but do it all in After Effects.
Thanks for that, Michelle. We're looking forward to this term. It's going to be an awesome course. And this is not the only new After Effects course this term. It's going to be Harry Frank, our buddy from Gray Machine, and he's going to be doing a new After Effects course with Red Giant. So let's hear from Harry.
Hi folks, Harry Frank from Red Giant here. And in this quick overview, I'd like to talk about our upcoming class, AFX 217 for FX PhD. This is going to be an in-depth course where we will cover tools in a very detailed manner. So over the course of 10 weeks, I won't be exploring a whole lot of different plugins. I will be exploring a few plugins in great detail. Mostly, we'll be talking about Trapcode Form, Trapcode Particular, Magic Bullet Looks for color correction, and a few other supporting plugins like Null Light Factory, Tsunami for some underwater effects, and just a handful of others. But mainly we'll be talking about the Trapcode suite and a couple supporting plugins just to wrap things up. So that means things are going to get very detailed and very complex with these plugins. To go over these plugins, we'll be creating a series of IDs for a fictitious network that I've called Terra. And the design motif that we'll be using is going to be based around the 4 basic elements, which are earth, air, fire, and water. So as you might guess, we'll be trying to use these elements as supporting design elements in the IDs. So this is a very basic one where we've got the earth out there and we've got a little spaceship flying by, and then there's a little burst and it goes into the text treatment. This is a very simple one, and this is actually the first one we'll be going through. But beyond this, we'll cover things like air and birds flocking and that kind of thing. fire treatments and underwater treatments and that kind of thing. So if you have a very basic understanding of trap code, particular and or trap code form, this class is perfect for you because we're really going to dive in and look at all of the controls that are available and how you can use them. These particle systems are very complex and there's a lot of detail here. So that's what we'll be covering. Hopefully I'll see you there. My name's Harry Frank. We'll see you in AFX 217.
Well, those are our new After Effects based courses this term. We also have a new motion graphics design course that you'll be hearing about later. And for now, let's head on down South Equator and see what's been happening with Mike.
Well, thanks, John. We're down here in Tasmania filming, but one of the courses before we get to what we're doing down here that has got nothing to do with Tasmania is a new RenderMan course on shaders. Now, we've had some technical RenderMan courses before, but this RenderMan course is all about shaders and it's very artist focused. I'll let the guys explain.
Hi, and welcome to RenderMan Techniques in Production. It's a broad topic, a lot of stuff to cover in this course, so we're going to break it down into 3 parts. 1, procedural shading. 2, ray tracing and global illumination. And 3, image-based lighting. My background is as a senior technical director on animation and visual effects feature films, where I specialize in shader writing, look development, and lighting, and I will be your instructor for this course. Part 1, procedural shading. The render here was from Mars Needs Mom's animated feature film that I worked on, and I developed the surface and displacement shaders for all the rust metal shading and variations that you see here. There's just one shader on all that geometry that procedurally does the variation. We're going to talk about this kind of technique and how to set it up and get nice procedural variation on complex model sets. Here's a look development render of that same model. And you can also use it for lots of other things like trees, tree leaves, for procedural variation of organic materials. So there's lots of applications there. Also, we're going to look at procedural displacement so we can do things like snow and lots of different organic patterns. We're going to expose all the different procedural noise parameters that you see in layered and complex noise shaders and demonstrate how they work individually and show the nice wedges that you see here. Usually these parameters aren't that intuitive, so we'd like to get a firm understanding of them. This one is octaves, the previous was lacunarity, just some of the parameters and noise shaders. And part 2, ray tracing and global illumination. We're going to cover the basics of ray tracing and ray tracing in RenderMan. Here's a scene I rendered in Mars Needs Moms again, where we tested and used ray trace reflection occlusion with exponential falloff. We compare exponential falloffs with linear falloffs. And finally, part 3, image-based lighting. This here is a high dynamic range image captured by a colleague from Lollipop Shaders, Arkel, and we're using all his HDRs in our ray traced and global illumination lighting setups. Here's one example of the scene with the van where there are no lights in the scene. It's all fully ray traced, hitting the environment dome with Arkel's HDR map. We're doing diffuse and specular into reflection and bounce. Same scene, just a swapped out HDR map. Again, no light sources. And finally, another scene with a different HDR map. So, hope you enjoy it.
fxguidetv Live from NAB 2012 is sponsored by The Foundry, developers of creative tools for artists, including Nuke, Hero, Mari, and more. This netcast is also made possible through the contributions of our FX Insider members.
Welcome to FX Guide live all day at the Foundry booth in the South Hall at the 2012 NAB convention in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hey, welcome back to our live coverage here from NAB. John Montgomery with you, and I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this. Before we get to our next segment, which is the Fusion I/O Effects interview, I want to give a bit of a rundown on what you're going to see for the rest of the day, and I'm going to try and refer to this and calculate in my head how far from now this is. In about 20 minutes, we have another Nuke and Mari demo coming up with Scott Metzger. If you saw the article on FX Guide with him, this is kind of a really hardcore, in-depth demo regarding that, so that's happening in about 20 minutes. We also have, coming up in about 1 hour and 20 minutes from now, an entire hour and a half, hour 15 minutes of the RC Live. That's an hour and 20 minutes from now. Then in, let's say, 2 hours and 50 minutes, I have an interview with the Adobe SpeedGrade folks, Patrick Palmer and Lynn Kaiser. who were formerly from working on SpeedGrade before it was acquired by Adobe. And I had the great opportunity to head up to Seattle and speak with them last week to get some insight into the software. And incidentally, I'm also going to be having an fxguidetv in a couple weeks with interviews from the Adobe team and so forth on After Effects. So that's going to be really great, coming out probably in a couple weeks around the time they maybe release the software. Then after that, we have a really great another Foundry demo on Nuke, I believe it is, in about 3 hours and 13 minutes back here on the show floor. And then later, some other stuff as well, following it up in about 4 hours and 10 minutes with DD, Eric Beaver, going through work they did with Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. All right? So that's what we've got planned out. You know how to plan your day, or if you're watching this on repeat, you can fast forward to certain sections that you want. But you really don't want to do that because we've got a ton of great things coming up. So for now, let's go ahead, and we heard about, as Mike and I talking about it a minute ago, let's go ahead and cross the interview that Mike did on Sunday with Vincent Berbois from, just butchered his name, from Fusion.io.
Vince, thanks for joining us, really appreciate it. So this card is really a move of technology from server to workstation.
Yep.
Which is kind of good because we are coming at it from a point of view, it's not like this is brand new technology unproven,
right? But
it's obviously at a dramatically different price point. Explain to me about that heritage from the servers.
Yeah, so Fusion.io has been around for a few years, for about a little bit over 5 years now. And you really don't hear the name so much because we actually OEM through IBM, HP, Dell, and Supermicro. So if you buy our products from HP, it's an HP IO accelerator. Buy it from IBM, it's a high IOPS adapter. So a lot of our products are out there without necessarily our name prominent on it. The other thing is they're in the server at the other end at Facebook. There's things that you don't necessarily see on your end either. So what we were able to do is kind of leverage that super high performance memory tier that we've built for servers, primarily where the demand was massive and just couldn't be done by even massive disk arrays and SANs, and bring it to the workstation. And what that meant is that, well, we benefited from this incredible technology that doesn't trickle down to the consumer to pay for all that R&D, but we're also able to get it to a price point of amount of memory and type of memory that's perfect for that environment. And we've also added the fan onto it so that it can reside next to these GPUs that are super hot inside the workstations.
Okay, so let's discuss what it isn't.
Yep.
So why isn't it just an SSD sitting there like I have in my laptop right now?
Yeah, so inside your system, easiest way to think about it is you've got your CPU and it's got memory inside. It's got L1, L2, L3 cache inside. Then you have RAM. And you know how RAM's just memory, right? It's just chips that are stuck into your motherboard. And your CPU basically controls that RAM. So it's got a little table of content in L1, L2 cache that's kind of everything that's inside RAM. So when your CPU wants information from RAM, it goes through its little table of content, finds what it wants, and gets it from RAM. What we did is say, well, instead of connecting through SATA, SAS, which is a whole other subsystem inside your computer, it's storage, which is meant to spinning disks and all that. Instead of connecting through that, we actually add the NAND in your system exactly like RAM. We basically put the NAND in, and we take our table of content and we put it inside your RAM. So you literally have L1, L2 cache in your CPU, then you have RAM, then you have I/O memory. And our I/O memory, our software, is not managed by a little Indilinks or SandForce chip on the SSD or on the device. It's actually managed by our software that runs in CPU, just like RAM. So we're literally a tier of memory past RAM inside the system.
So in very literal terms, if I had a fast hard drive at 7500, then my next step up would be put in an SSD.
Correct.
Which is going to be a lot faster because, of course, I don't have read-write problems that get to a head reader.
Yeah.
But it's
still accessed through the system,
because it looks like a disk.
Yeah.
And so it has disk commands going to it.
Correct. Yeah, so you're going through, it's kind of like translating to a different language to talk to it because it's going through that subsystem. By having the memory in RAM, basically, having our table of content in RAM and the memory addressable like a CPU, by the CPU, just like RAM, it's essentially like having 420 gigs of RAM in your system.
How literal is that statement? I mean, if I could somehow magically plug in huge numbers of RAM chips, would it be exactly the same or close?
It's actually, a lot of our clients have switched from RAM to this this is actually ends up being faster than RAM in certain situations if your RAM is non-persistent. This is persistent. So in large data centers, sometimes they fill up their RAM, then it has to go somewhere. So there has to be a command to dump it to disk, and then you're stuck waiting for all that to flush out and then reload. If you never have to flush out of RAM, it's often faster than having a small amount of RAM that needs to be filled and flushed and refilled and flushed by just holding it in here. Now, so it literally
So give me some numbers on that, though. Like, what is the kind of... We had some demos we've just seen. So what are the kind of numbers that I'm expecting to get in terms of both read and write?
Correct. So there's a few factors that come into performance, and there's read and write, and that's kind of like horsepower and torque, right? You don't just buy a car by horsepower and torque, or we'd all be driving Mack trucks. So you also need a good transmission and all the other stuff, and that's really the differentiating factor. So in terms of specs, it's 420 gigs of memory. It has a read of 1.45 gigabytes per second, so almost 1.5 gigs per second, and a write of 700 megabytes per second. But the critical element that's not in a lot of spec sheets is the latency. And the latency is how quickly does it find what I'm looking for. And that is 0.06 milliseconds. So an SSD is around 1. We're at 0.06. And then when you add RAID controllers and everything else. So that's that critical thing that makes this memory and not a hard drive.
Okay, so the other thing about SSDs we know is that there are two levels of SSDs. There's SSD that has a really great peak, it's awesome, but it can't sustain it for very long.
Correct.
And then there are sort of like mil-spec SSDs that are much more expensive, but can actually take what we want in video or film, where I need it
constant, no matter what's going on.
Second after second after second, yeah.
Yep. So that spike in performance usually happens when the drive gets more full. So it could be that it's just more fragmented, the data around, or it gets more full and there's less space. Because when you're writing, you're actually writing to all these cells at the same time in parallel. And if some cells are more full than others, then you can't do it. So what we do is, this is actually a 512 gig card. So we have a 20% over provisioning of capacity on it. So that way, by using only 420 gigs, even if you fill it, you still have this 20% extra chips that allow you to load balance all that writing. So that eliminates a lot of that spiking. The other thing that it does is gives you longevity, because the NAND memory wears out the NAND wears out when you write to it. And because of the way we control it here, we actually have a technology called flashback, which if it has a failure on a cell, it'll actually move the data to another cell. Okay. So it's like a self-healing RAID in itself.
Like a RAID in itself, yeah.
Yeah, that self-heals and will reduce capacity over time. It'll never just blow up. I was going to say,
the next thing about this is I could put more than one of these in my machine.
Oh yeah, that's what I do all the time. So I run 2 of these.
Well, of course you do.
Oh, well, yeah. So we had 2 in the machine here, and that's the other thing, is when you RAID SSDs together, you'll get a massive diminishing returns. You put 2 SSDs, you pretty much get 2x performance. You add 2 more, you'll get 20-30% of those 2 extra ones. So trying to get 3 gigabytes per second out of an SSD RAID is very difficult. If possible. I haven't seen one yet that does 3 gigs per second. But all you need to do is put 2 of these cards, you have 3 gigs per second. You put 4 cards, you have 6 gigs per second.
Because it's just memory.
It's memory. It doesn't suffer. We don't have yeah, it doesn't suffer from that storage subsystem. It doesn't suffer from the RAID controller, from the latencies everywhere.
So is this acting like a multiple kind of head system in the sense that it's taking multiple streams and laying them down at once?
Yeah, so it really, there's a few ways to actually access the device, and the way we were using it here was fairly simple, where we're using it as a block device. So although this is a memory device, and it's DMA addressable like memory, the software has to be built to address it like memory. And that's something we showed at SIGGRAPH last year with NVIDIA. We were doing those 12 streams of 1080p uncompressed in a workstation. We were doing that through DMA. What we're doing here is using it as a block device. So another good thing about this is if we just gave you a ton of RAM in your box, it doesn't necessarily help you unless the software is built for it. So we actually show up as a block device, just like a hard drive. So for the application, it's as simple as putting your scratch disk on this device, so it looks like a drive. And the beauty of it is the parallel. So oftentimes SSDs are able to do multi-threading in a way that if you have very deep queues, so you're processing things one after the other and going through it. With this, we can actually do a parallel low queue depth, very, very high bandwidth. which means that we can be writing 200 files at the same time or reading 200 files at the same time, because there's none of that overhead of the entire subsystem of communication to go through.
Which of course was essential when you're on servers.
Yeah, exactly. So you can't handle billions of users on Facebook if you don't use these cards. And just to give you an idea, the way this has worked in server space is oftentimes a client has 10 servers. They put one card in the server and they shut 9 servers off. It's that much performance. And all it does is unlock that bandwidth. We actually have 17 of these cards at the show this year, all over the place. Some places we can talk about, others we can't. But Adobe, we also have the Foundry is going to be using our cards. We'll be showing off Hero and I believe Mari as well, get benefits greatly from these cards. You'll also see us at Assimilate. You'll see us at Cube. So they were actually mentioning the delivery system for the theaters that get hard drives. Well, they're actually going to be demonstrating using these cards to deliver to a theater so that they can do 4K on compressed playback, which is way beyond what they've ever done before.
And if somebody's watching this and they're enthusiastic about it, when will they be able to get one if they're not?
So you can go to our website. Yeah, you can go to the fusionio.com, the IOFX page, and you can actually reserve a copy now. We will be shipping end of spring. So
I'm an Australian.
Very
When's
soon. That gives you around.
I know you like to
May,
use
June.
that to be not tied down.
Yeah, I believe
Middle
it's
of
around
the year.
May, June. Yeah, that kind of time frame. So it's. I'm really excited to be able to bring this to the VFX industry.
Well, thanks for talking to us, man. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, again, really excited about that product. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. And incidentally, one of the cool things that they were there in the panel on Sunday was none other than Chief Scientist and Investor, Steve Wozniak. Woz was there. How cool was that to actually hear his perspective on things?
Oh, absolutely. And we went backstage after Woz's presentation, which was really, really funny, I've got to say. Like, he's a good speaker. I mean, you always think of Steve Jobs as being the presenter, but like one point was like talking about artificial intelligence. I don't know how he got there. And he suddenly went, I didn't think artificial intelligence would come. Actually, we've actually worked out at Fusion.io how to make a human brain now. Takes 9 months, but we think we've worked out how to do it. And I was like, this guy's funny.
Yeah, he really is. It was really great. But hey, getting here was kind of a battle too, wasn't it?
Oh my God, yeah. Like, I mean, I've been coming to NAB, like, how often? It's like, I don't know,
20,
too long,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. 20 plus.
And we always drive over because we've got obviously all this gear and all this kit that we're bringing. And what the heck? I thought we were going on a ski trip.
Yeah, we come over the valley, in the desert. We come over the hill and look out, and it's just covered with snow. Cacti covered with snow, really cool mountains and so forth, but really something that you wouldn't expect that time of year, especially since I tried to head out skiing out west, and they had 0 snow, of course. But really a beautiful drive, a really great footage, and of course, with come in with a ton of 5Ds in the car, contours, everyone filming and taking shots. Is a lot of fun. So.
It was a little embarrassing how many cameras we had active in the car. It was a little embarrassing.
Yeah, but we are here at NAB, and you actually busy. I was doing a lot of prep yesterday, but again, you've seen some cool stuff in the last couple of days.
Yeah, like I mentioned it before about stereoscopic, and I thought we'd just, because I had a couple of questions on the Twitter feed, which by the way you can get to by #FXGNAB. Just type that in, and then we've got somebody monitoring that, our Uber geeks up in Mission Control Central.
As well as the chat at the bottom below this video as well.
Just scroll down on what we're looking at. But anyway, so they asked a couple of questions we didn't get into much detail before. So actually, this is going to be going into about like 2 years ago, we wrote an art of stereoscopic conversion story. And we've got effectively a part 2 on that. So that basically part 2 means
lost
that...
Lost power.
We are live on any camera.
Can you tell him lost? Okay. Yeah.
Okay, so we went basically and looked at what it would take to update that story on stereoscopic workflow. Now, the first one was great. It was really, really good, and we enjoyed it a lot, and it got a bazillion hits, but technology moved a lot in just the time it took between that story coming out and now. And so we went to look at the latest projects, and the 2 big ones that are going to be featured in that upcoming story is Titanic, which is what I saw yesterday, and we actually had an interview after that with the guys, and also John Carter of Mars. And it's really interesting, John, how divergent the technology approaches are to stereo conversion between what you'd think would be now a settling down technology. John Carter, they've got full-on 3D geometry that they're projecting over as part of a roto process to do the stereo conversion because it was shot on film. Obviously, Stanton doesn't like shooting digitally. He's wanted to shoot film. Film means almost by necessity you're going to have to do a stereo conversion. Versus Titanic, which of course, while it was an older film, had exactly the same problem. It was shot on film. They wanted to stereo convert it. Absolutely no projection used. Over in John Carter, they used floating windows and a lot of really cutting edge stuff that's been developed recently. Over at Titanic, no floating windows. Cameron hates them. John Carter, parallel cameras. Titanic, convergent. I mean, what the?
Yeah, you just start with the first one there, projections and no projections. You would think automatically projections might make your life easier by you're not necessarily becoming as much as a frame-by-frame issue, but it's not as simple as that at all.
Okay, I'll give you that it would be making your life simpler if you had the geometry.
Exactly.
The only thing I'd say is in the case of the shot we're using for this story coming up, they have a whole crowd with umbrellas in the rain with horses, so they had to get geometry for the horses, the people on the horses, their umbrellas, their clothes, set extended. I mean, it's just an amazing amount of work.
Hybrid approach would be the way to go.
Of course, as we alluded to earlier, huge amounts of problem with getting the smoke and stuff. And a little preview, there's actually about 3 to 4% that was actually added in as new digital stuff. Now they're saying publicly nothing is touched, and really nothing was touched. But to get some of the smoke and stuff, they actually had to add some new volumetrics, because you just almost can't roto smoke. But on that score, we mentioned that's coming up. It's not really an art of story, but it's like the art of story. But we had a huge response last week.
Oh, to the art of rendering. I think whatever I say, one of our biggest weeks ever at fxguide, if not the biggest week ever, with this blockbuster story that you've been working on for it. And it's obvious. It's really a brilliant story because the amount of research and depth that goes into it to get information right. So first off, kudos, and
thanks,
really a lot of great information in it.
I think we did 20 interviews for that, and I guess the takeout of it, from my point of view, which was kind of interesting, is how much ray tracing is coming into its own at a full production level. Now, Arnold is probably the hottest ray tracer, though you can only buy it if you're a large facility. So for those people that are like not big facilities, V-Ray is really hip. But it had been that the one that was kind of like not that way was Pixar's RenderMan, of course, from the Reeves renderer. But that's actually changed in version 16, which we saw at SIGGRAPH. They went to that, and in version 17 even more so. And this ray tracing solution ties in with physically plausible shaders and a lot of the rendering stuff. In fact, even the stuff we were talking about with ILM, remember Ben Snow did that whole thing about how they were sampling the lights for HDR? It's this entire move in that direction. And I love that tech, man. It's just awesome.
Yeah, really fantastic. And another article that we had recently that you did was one of our series looking at work by various artists. And that was Scott Metzger covering Mari, which is a total rock star. So if you saw the For Example article at fxguide, absolutely amazing, some of the stuff he did, especially some of the videos within. But we heard you wanted more, and so our second demo now from the Foundry booth is Scott Metzger. So let's go ahead and toss it over to Scott. Scott?
Hey everyone. Scott Metzger from Copa, which is a new visual effects studio that was founded by Vico Shabani and Alex Frisch in Los Angeles. So this was actually our first job. You might have seen it, you might not. It's David Guetta, Nicki Minaj music video for a song called Turn Me On. And doing music videos, it's always a very painful thing because you have a short amount of time to do a lot of work. So this job is really a big challenge. Also, it being our first job, you really want to make your first job coming out look as best as you can. And to do that, I was in charge of doing the CG supervision along with the lighting and rendering techniques using Mari, V-Ray, Maya, and Nuke. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you kind of a little bit of my process and how I used all the software to pull everything together. What I'll do is I'll just start and play some of the CG clips. And what you're seeing is V-Ray renders. It's all 100% V-Ray with depth of field, motion blur, all from the renderer. Compositing in Nuke. And texture painting in Mario. A lot of the displacement, you'll see the kind of eggshell effect around her face. It's all been painted in Mario. All the lighting setups were actually painted PTEX geometry, which is a UV-less system for holding color information. And I'll go on and show you a little bit of the process of how I go and shoot the photography of the lights and how I paint all that in to actually speed up the whole process. And the next clip I'm going to show is going to be a breakdown of some of the elements I'm going to be going over. So right now you're going to see the wireframe. You can see there's a lot of there's a lot of geometry. We have a CG table that's a HDR texture. It's been projected inside of Mari, along with the different render passes and all the sandwich pieces together for final comp. All right, so the first thing, this music video was shot on a Red Epic. And one of the nice things about dealing inside of Nuke is you can actually take the R3D footage right after the shoot, take it home with you, bring it into Nuke, and actually all the metadata will correctly read inside of the application. So you can have all your ISO settings, the color temperature in which it was shot at. All this information is really good. And the whole idea is we wanted to actually shoot all the surrounding environments with like a 2-camera setup. So there's one camera, we go around to all the light sources that are actually on the set, and we're actually going to shoot all those with a non-fisheye lens. So you can see here in my script, we have every single light source that was actually used in the video. And then down below here, we have all the spherical HDRs. So I'm just going to gain this up a little bit so you can see a little better. And let's go into the, let me find the room. So here's one of the main rooms, and this is where Nicki Minaj, her robot-pieced body was being put together. So you can see here, one of the things you want to actually do is we want to take the footage of the red and the HDRs, and we want to match all the color together. So to do that, the first thing I do is I open up Maya, and I load up basically a sphere inside here, which is going to have the spherical HDR photography. And then we're going to take the plate, and we're going to load up the actual raw linear plate on just a plane. And so if I do a render of this, so you can see the plate comes out okay, but this is really, really dark, and the color seems to be off a lot. So what we're going to do is we're going to go inside. Excuse me. We're going to go inside and do some color correction nodes, and we're going to try to match up the HDR photography as close as we can to the actual plate. So after a little back and forth, we're going to go through, add some grade nodes, adjust the exposure, and we're going to get something that looks like a little bit like this. These are really big HDRs, so it might take a little bit to cache up and process. Here we go. And so as that goes to render, we're going to pop this out and change the actual map. Now, the second thing we have to do is actually adjust this camera in V-Ray so it's a physical camera. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to recreate what we had shot. So there was like a 1.3 aperture lens along with the ISO setting. So I'll go under here, and we're going to say still camera. We're going to choose movie camera. Next thing we're going to do is go f-stop, and we'll just do 1.3. And then ISO, we're going to do 1000 ISO. And now if I do a render, you see it's getting a little bit lighter. There we go. So it's still off though. So we're going to take that adjusted file from Nuke, and I'm actually going to place it inside. And so what this is doing is this is actually letting you calibrate the HDR photography. So when you actually go to do all your lighting inside, you're not readjusting or spending a lot of time doing the actual lighting. The lighting is pretty much going to be set up, so you throw in the CG and you hit render. So now that we have this calibrated to the CG camera, all the color information coming from the plate photography, the red, along with our CG textures and HDR are totally in sync now, which is really, really important. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to start to actually build the environment. So all these nodes are actually copied multiple times throughout the script, and we're going to process everything with the same color tweaks. So inside of Mari, what I'm actually doing, I have the spherical maps, and we're throwing it into a scanline render inside of Nuke, and we're rendering out 6 different directions, kind of like a cubic map, except I'm adjusting the field of view so it's not 90, more like 110, so I can play a little more with the edges if it's not lining up totally with the geometry. So opening up Mari, there we go. We'll go to the start file. All right. So what we have here is like a low-res representation of the actual set. So all these pieces of geometry in here, all these polygons, are really rough measurements using a Leica total station, which is kind of like a survey device that shoots out a laser. And you do one point at a time, and you basically get the correct dimensions of the whole environment. So once you have a basic environment, you can start filling in all these polygons with all the HDR data, which is really, really cool thing. And the other thing that's really cool about this is because this is PTEX, there's no UVs. So if you have a really large, elaborate environment, you don't have to spend artist time actually UVing objects, which is a really cumbersome task to do. And it's also needed when you are using UVs. Because we aren't using UVs, we don't have to do that, which is awesome. So we're going to go to our camera here, and you can see here that I have the different camera directions lined up inside the scene. And we're going to go over here to the image manager, and these are basically all the different images that were exported from Nuke for projection. So using this cool brush called the paint through brush, we can just drag our images into the view and then change our camera a little bit. Actually, I'll have to deselect that, and so we'll find that like angle. So let's say we're at frame 4. Go back to the paint through brush, and you know, we can line up the actual image to match the geometry like so, and then we just go through and paint. We can also just stamp it as well, and when you stamp it, it's going to take the whole image and actually just fill it in with a paint buffer. But I'd like to do it a little bit manually, more manual than that, so I'll just go in here and just kind of paint in the door area like this. And then we can go to the bicubic tool. So you can see that the geometry might not match up 100% to your image. Usually that's a big deal because you have to go back and forth between the packages of the 3D package and actually start lining up all the geometry to the camera.
fxguidetv Live from NAB.
You can go up to this warp tool and actually grab it and deform it to fit on the geometry, which is a really, really, really neat feature. So after you have something you like that's placing, you can see here that we're going to bake it down onto the geometry. So now it's actually in the 3D space, and we can move around and see that these textures are all here. So now I'll go to a different angle, and we'll grab another image. So there's up, down, left, right. There we go. So we'll go here and try to paint this edge of the table right here. So we'll just kind of just go on right here. Let's do a sloppy job because we're live on TV. All right, and we'll bake that down. And see here now we have this little piece that's actually painted on the table. What we can also do is I can actually adjust the field of view. So we'll go from 110 to like 70 or so. And there's basically other photos I have of the table up close, so I can then add a lot more detail moving the camera around in the actual scene. So what I'll show you is a finished environment. So let's just open up a finished one. 1 second. And if we scrub through the camera, you can see all the different camera angles have been projected. And this was really done with one spherical map. The ideal thing is to actually go around your set with your environment and take spherical photography from all the different positions. And once you have all the different positions, you'll have a lot more color information along with all the data for parallax and areas that you actually don't have textures to paint from. But once you actually do have that, you can, move around the environment. If I wanted to put something down in this corner in CG, the whole idea is that it's already going to be lit, and the global illumination is going to pick up and bounce from the shadowed areas of the set. So it's really, really, really a great tool for painting, for matte painting. If you want to use these for assets to do like a real-time engine, it's really great for that. Also for all the lighting integration, it can't be beat for accurate reflections as well. So it's really neat. And you also have full control for the exposure too. So since you're dealing with HDR data, there's always a large range of light information. So if we were to go outside and it's daylight, what you'd see is everything would blow out completely. So to paint and be able to actually go up and down with your exposure, we can go from an interior space like this to an exterior space and still be able to see everything inside, which is really neat. All right, so next thing I'm going to hop into is loading up the PTEX inside of Maya and render it with V-Ray. So what we have is the geometry. Let me go to perspective really quick. So you can see the setup inside of Maya. It's the same geometry, and we actually just have one file on all the geometry that holds all the texture information. So this is the PTEX loader. You can give it a cache because some of these files, they get up to like, they could be anywhere from 100 megs to 20 gigabytes of data. And because it's PTEX, it's only going to load up what you need along with having all the actual bitmap resolutions included. So it's not going to load up 20 gigs of data into your computer at once. So you can see there's also these little cards here, and those were those single source lights that I actually have photographed, and we're actually placing those on V-Ray rec lights so we can really move them around the environment just to kind of art direct a lot of the CG. So you see in the reflection of the sphere, you have the actual lights from the sets, along with the table. And the table is actually a lot more accurate in the reflection because it's on geometry. So it's not just the normal spherical HDR. If you've ever done any type of rendering before, you probably use a lot of dome lights using a spherical HDR. But you want to be a lot more accurate in terms of your reflection and the distance for color. So if we had GI turned on, we would actually see the bounced color on the bottom filling up around the sphere. So the next thing we're going to do is get rid of the spheres because that's a little boring. And we'll just turn on the spine. And usually when I'm actually look deving a lot of this stuff, I have about 10 machines that are tucked away in the corner with RT. And when you go into the real-time mode, it's actually going to take all those CPUs and use them to help render the image and refine it. So it's really, really useful. I could have the whole model of her robot figure loaded into the scene file with 10 machines and move around with the different camera angles, and it's extremely fast. So if we go IPR render, go to the actual camera, and so it's going to start up the V-Ray RT mode. And you can see our spine showing up and starting to render now. And if we move the camera around, you can see everything updates. And so if we get rid of the PTEX geometry, let me show you the differences, see if it updates without it. So we're losing all of our environment. We'll turn it back on again. And right now, the only thing that's lighting the spine is the actual rec lights with the HDR textures that are applied to it. And so here, with the PTEX turned on, all of our accurate reflections are coming back into play. So the next thing that's kind of cool is we're going to just go into this camera that's already been calibrated based on our original setup that we went over before, and we're going to turn on the depth of field effects. And like I said before, the depth of field was all in the render for this music video, so it was really, really important to try to be as physically accurate as possible. And that comes down to determining your measurements of your objects, the way the cameras are tracked for integration. All that stuff is really, really important when you're actually doing depth of field inside of V-Ray. So that pretty much covers it up in terms of setting up everything for rendering, using the PTEX Mari workflow in terms of creating the assets for lighting. Next thing I'm going to go into is going to cover a little bit of the painting, the character work. I'm going to show some large geometry being animated through Mari, which is really, really cool feature. So we'll go into that right now. Let me see, back to Mari. So this was a scan. We had a 3D scan of Nicki Minaj and an amazing artist named Adam Lewis. If you go to adamvfx.com, you can check out his character work. He actually did all the lighting, resurfacing of Nicki, and the David Guetta model that's got the kind of like microphone mesh. So he's a extremely talented artist. He was supposed to come, but he couldn't make it to NAB. So this is shot 70, which was the main breakdown shot that I showed before, and this is her whole performance for that shot, along with the actual camera being animated inside of Mari. And the nice thing about being able to hold your geometry with all your animation is if you have a director sitting down right next to you, they kind of don't want to see anything other than the shot and the framing that they approved. So to do that, it's a quick way to actually get shots finalized or a process of texturing and et cetera, really quickly. So going next through this, let's just turn off her face a second, and we'll just start loading up the tubes, the spine, all the metal pieces in here. And you can see that there was a lot of detail put into this. And a lot of this I didn't see because I flew out to do another project and then came back towards the tail end. But I was actually really, really amazed by the quality of the modeling and the animation by Joe Harkins as the animation director. What he put together kind of blew me away. But to be able to actually scrub through all of this geometry inside of Mari is actually a huge feat by itself. So it just goes to show the power of the display engine inside, which is really, really cool. So going on next, we're going to kind of have a little tour of the actual layers that were painted inside of Mari, and I'm also going to go through and show some of the triplanar projection setups, which is new to 1.43. All right, so one of the things for the eggshell effect was creating a displacement map to cut out and hold out 2 levels of the surface of her, because the bottom surface, the whole idea is we were going to have this porcelain effect on top, and then underneath here was like the Barbie mannequin material that was supposed to like grow up around the face. But we kind of ran out of time for that, so I'm showing you the different levels. So these brushes actually, to create the edging, were actually just stock brushes inside of Mari. That's one of the other cool features, is you have a lot of really good brushes to choose from, some amazing stuff. So it kind of has these little hedge marks of fibers. And then if we go back to the top mat, this is the actual second layer, which is the porcelain material. And even though we weren't using 32-bit displacement, the 8-bit displacement worked really nice to be able to do this. And the other thing is you don't have transparency. So I'm going to just quickly show you that pass so we can look at it a little bit closer in detail. So here's the raw subsurface pass, but you can see how the displacement renders even with just the 8-bit painted image inside of Mari through V-Ray. And then we go to the spec pass for that. So there's no transparency, and it's, like I said, it was all displacement, and it's using a technique that's called water level inside of V-Ray. So you can basically paint a white and black map, and using the water level, you can give it a limit, so it'll start cutting out the geometry and making holes. So you can do really like high-res looking stuff with geometry without having to actually use transparency maps that might actually slow down the render, which is pretty cool. And one of the other things too is we had a really fine bump that kind of went like all over the head, And it's like all those little extra details that actually help, you know, kind of add the realism to it. So if we zoom in to her head, you can see here that we have like little fine bumps. Let's see if it shows up. Yeah, it shows up. So we have these little fine bumps, and this was all done with the triplanar shader. So the triplanar shader is actually a really cool tool to quickly texture objects. And what I usually do is I do a once-over with a triplanar shader, and then I bake that out to a channel, and then you can start painting on it and add a lot of different variation. And this is really, really new feature, and it's probably my favorite feature in Mari next to the HDR projections. So what we'll do is we'll go to the diffuse channel, and I'm going to go to the shader, and we're going to create a new shader. All right, and now we're going to take all the ambient light set to 1 and then bring everything to 0 so we can just see the actual constant texture. So now in terms of painting with the triplanar, because it's going to repeat live within the package, you're going to want to actually tile your textures. So there's a gizmo somewhere on the internet. It's called offset, and what it does is it takes, like, say, your texture. Like, here's a texture from cgtextures.com, and what we'll do is we'll take this offset node, and it just does an offset like you would in Photoshop. And then you can just paint out the actual edges to this, and when that's all done, you get sort of tileable image. But let's go back into Mari, and I'll show you with the spherical projection. So we're going to go add new shader module, and we'll go to triplanar. And I'm going to load up an image. So we're just going to throw it to the top. And so what this actual top image is doing is it's going from the top of the model. I'm sorry, you know, it's confusing because she's laying down on the table. So here's the top of the model. And so it's basically taking this one texture and projecting it all the way through. And the neat part about this is we can set a different repeat. So if you want it like, you know, large or small, we can go like 0.2. So now it's repeating it larger. There's also a global world scale, because what's going to happen is you might want to affect all 3 projections with a different scale. So you can do them all at once by adjusting the actual world scale. So we can go 2 to whatever. And right here we have these curve controls, so you can see that we're actually adjusting the blend of the projection. And where that's really important is when you come up to the edges right here and then the surface curves, you might not want to get that like projection stretching, so you can actually take this fall off and adjust it to actually cut out those projections. Okay, and then we can take that same image and actually adjust it to the side. So you can see here with it being on the side, we can now adjust that as well with different repeats. We can also offset it and rotate it, and then adjust the blend for that as well. So you'll see here that now that projection that was actually smearing over the sides is actually going away. And one thing to note is, because this is a projection, this is all happening live within the actual program. We can't currently paint on that unless we bake it. But there's some really good pluses about actually having that. And so here's we're throwing in the front image, which is actually going to go and just blend in like that. So as you can see here, it's a really good start for actually fully texturing the actual object for Nikki. And excuse me, the next thing after you have basically, if you're happy with this, the other thing that's cool is I can actually copy this shader to multiple objects at the same time, and that saves a lot of time, because if you have something that's set up at a certain scale, you won't have to actually recreate, you know, all the blends, adjusting the actual scale on the actual node. So it saves a lot of time. And at any time at all, if you ever want to come back and you say you don't like the bump that's on her face, you can just go back to this image manager and just kind of drag over the new image, and everything will save as well. So it's pretty cool for having it be not so destructive and never slow down the actual workflow with any type of creative changes that you actually have, which is kind of cool. So going back to the actual script, let me show you how these elements were pieced together from the renderer. So here is one of the beauty passes. And you can see the highlights are a lot hotter, but we have a lot of really good range to pull from. And you know, one of the problems is because you're going so quickly with music videos is, you know, there's always a problem that's going to come up. And one of the things is that there was so many metallic pieces on the inside of her face that trying to get it to not penetrate was a little bit of an issue. So you want to really quickly be able to create mats for that to actually hold out the top part of her face and then still show some of the bottom pieces. So this was the main beauty render for the porcelain look. And the metallics had to be lit a little bit differently. So I'm going to go into the metal pieces. So you can see here's the metallic render, and I'll just play that. So there's really a lot of stuff going on. Looking at the EXR channels we have a lot of mats pretty much for every single different group of geometry, all the different gears and stuff. And to save time, you can actually export those as a object ID inside of V-Ray, read it in as a separate channel, and then you can start dialing in very quickly different colors and of the metals, which does save a lot. So putting down the metals together is pretty much just your standard plus, plus, plus. So we're taking the lighting pass, we have the reflection pass, spec pass is over here, and these are all being plussed together. There's some grades that are going on. Things are a little bit too bright. You can see here we're pulling in some mats to use to actually separate the colors of the metals. And it's a lot easier to actually do a lot of that inside of the comp than at render, because we don't have to keep rendering just for little hue adjustments inside. And right here, this was a mat that was used to actually go on top to sandwich. And inside of my 3D package, Maya, we have a projection that basically goes from the camera and kind of cuts into the head, so you can just kind of sandwich it on top, along with the red channel, which is the bottom layer of her face, and we have the green channel, which is basically everything that goes on top of that. So now the subsurface areas and the porcelain look, it kind of looks something like this. So we have our subsurface pass, which I showed a little bit earlier before. We have the GI pass wasn't used, but it's always good to throw it in, because if you have a compositor that is working without it, or a lighter that isn't, and then for some reason you do turn it in and it's not in the render last minute, you know, you always want to make sure you're covered for that. And then also the lighting pass. And over here we have the reflection pass, which is really cool. It kind of looks like something that Blur did for Dragon Tattoo. And then here's the spec pass, which is a little bit more broader. And we're basically going to just plus the subsurface pass with the reflections for that. And down below here, what's going to happen, let me see where they kind of meet together. So here is the top layer, and it's going to be going right over the metallics on the inside. And you know, one of the good things about using Nuke as a lighter is I can easily start building all these comps. And really what happened is I started this monster comp, and it was the messiest thing in the world. And we had a compositor named G who then took over my disgustingly nasty comp. And just spent a few hours cleaning it up, and was able to actually comp all these Nicki Minaj shots like in a few days, which is really great. And it's all about the handoff. So when you have lighters working with compositors and being able to really quickly share all that work and not having to redo it in another compositing package saves a lot of time. And it's really a great thing to have. And so here's the final image of the comp with a little bit of a grade. And we'll go back to the clip, and I'll just quickly show it again. that's about it. So thank you very much for watching. And I guess we're going to do some questions, or I get a free hat.
Giving away free things to people that ask questions, and we also got some stuff coming in. But man, I love your work.
Thank you.
Hey, so I got a couple of questions for you.
Yeah.
The first thing is, before we get to these guys, so one of the things that came in 1.4.3 and has been coming through is a lot of better use of Mari to Photoshop, like exporting layers. And so I got excited about that because I'm not a Mari artist, and you're not using it. Is that right?
No, not yet. I'm not really big into going at. I pretty much use everything. If it's in Mari or Nuke, that's all I need. I don't go back and forth into Photoshop. You know, I'll find ways to work around any issue. Like, in other words, like the offset node, to basically just offset your image. That's something you'd go into Photoshop to do to make a tileable texture, and so you don't really have to do that. There's so many ways to.
It kind of blows my mind that you wouldn't use Photoshop and you're a texture artist, because I don't know about you guys, right? But I was like, 2 years ago, that would be unheard of. I mean, and so let me ask you this: you also went into V-Ray, and I know you really like V-Ray.
Oh
so
yeah, I love it.
You, in fact, you basically have like man love for V-Ray, right?
Yeah. It's pretty much. It's there's a place in Santa Monica where we go drinking called Warsawa, and it's like this collection of these V-Ray people, you know, from all over Los Angeles, and we just have like a V-Ray love fest every Wednesday. So.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you a couple of questions about this job, and I know you went off and came back, but
Yeah.
I mean, so this clearly took you what, 7 or 8 years?
No. There was a little bit of pre-production, like going over the concepts. Marcos from Copa was a fantastic designer, and we were also looking for a space at the same time. We actually didn't have a place to do the video when we booked it. I'm not sure if I could say that, but it was really like, you know, run and gun the whole way through. But we actually set up a place. We had artists working in Arizona. We had people in New York. It was really, really cool collaborative way to actually work over the internet. And then we did finishing in Los Angeles, so all the heavy rendering was done locally, and we had a Silver Draft truck to actually help out with a lot of the rendering, which is
It just seems to me that one of the really great things about what you're doing is that we're moving from mega hacks to make it look real to using more real stuff to make it creatively better. I know that sounds like a sales pitch, but it's like kind of true, like that HDR projection stuff, you know what I mean? Like we used to have to hack to death to get that kind of look.
Yeah, no, before you'd always do a spherical projection, maybe use a few different spherical projections in your scene, take the plate photography and project it over through the camera. But to be able to actually have unlimited detail, to be able to paint unlimited detail, to go in as a photograph, like a photographer on sets, and actually capture as much information as possible really allows you to, for one, recreate the environment and have a completely physically accurate environment, because it's a lot more than just using like an unbiased renderer. It's not good enough. You have to recreate physics as close as possible to your environment. And once you start doing that, it's actually a lot easier to get really quick, good-looking results because a lot of the guesswork is gone.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a couple of questions. I've got more I've got to ask you about, but I'm going to ask these guys. Anyone have a question? Because this, seriously, you should ask a question if you've got a question. Because A, you'll get a hat, and B, Scott is worth asking questions of. Yep. I was going to ask that. Here, you get a hat. That's a really good question, because that's exactly what I was going to ask, which is p-text. So those of you that don't know, when Mari, I think, first came to the Foundry, it didn't have p-text, I'm thinking. Maybe it didn't, or okay, I shouldn't have said that. No, but apparently it was very close to having it. The point is, we didn't have p-text just, a couple of 2-3 years ago.
Yeah, in Disney, they actually open sourced it, which is really, really cool. And it's actually, who would have thought sharing information is
good idea.
Such a big benefit for everyone.
Okay, but before that, you basically needed to be very good at UV mapping.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, we sort of you said, you do the p-text stuff and stuff, but I mean, in terms of difference it makes to you of having well integrated, it solves this for me p-text versus before, must be.
Yeah, well, also the other thing is, if you're working on commercials or a short project, no one wants to UV anything. What happens is you get automatically mapped UVs from all your models, and those are only really good in a paint package, so you're not bringing those into Photoshop, right? So to be able to actually use the p-text and not have any UVs whatsoever is awesome.
Yeah, because I mean, we've seen it, right? You go to a demo and they say automatically UVs, and I'm just sitting there going, yeah, I'm going to be able to use that.
Totally.
So basically, in terms of your work, what's the split that you are between, because obviously you were jumping between multiple packages here, like are you spending most of your time as an artist doing the texturing stuff? And just tell me about your...
Well, yeah, I mean, I actually was never a texture artist.
You fell into it, right?
Yeah, I fell into it when I was over at Method working on this big job, and we had so many assets to paint, and there was no time to do it, so everyone had to hop in and get it, and it was like the first time we actually used Mari. And I was just surprised at how all the junior artists we had, and myself included, were actually picking it up so quickly. So that was actually a pretty cool thing.
Yeah, I can't tell you which facility, but I was at a facility before I came here, and they it was a big, hasn't come out yet, big film, and they wanted to use Mari, and they said basically that, well, like, we don't want to do that, and so they had one guy go off and see if they could do it in Mari. I'm not making this up. And then they said, because the other guys were like, we're not using it, because it's, and then they went, okay, this guy's getting so much work done, they just flipped the switch and went that way. Any other questions we got from the floor? Any other? Come on, you get this incredibly limited edition hat, autographed by John Montgomery.
You got a question? Yeah, come on.
I'm not going to give John a hat. Okay. Okay, so just in terms of the rest of the project, we've been looking at this stuff here, of course, and this is at the front of the film clip and stuff. What was the scope of the work that you did? Was it on just this, or like through the, because it's an amazing clip.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's a lot of work that was done. My focus was mostly on Nikki in the lab room, and that was pretty much it. There was another section which was David Guetta when he turns into this microphone, and then of course we had all these different head replacements, like full 3D head replacements, which were pretty insane, and a lot of those were handled by Vico Shabani in Flame, which is really, really cool.
I have to admit, we posted some photos of this on our website, and people said that they were offended by the nudity, and I was like, they're robots, or they're mannequins. It's like, there's no nudity.
No, there was no nudity. That would be not cool. On set, those poor girls, you know, it was freezing cold, so they were covered up.
But it is this opening really like sets the tone for the piece. But you mentioned that microphone thing. Is that the chainmail-y kind of look?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard because like to take a microphone mesh on someone is a lot different than just having a microphone mesh on a spherical piece. So a lot of people think it's chainmail. It's supposed to be microphone mesh.
I'm sorry.
But all the depth of field
because he is moving.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that was all painted in Mudbox using 32-bit displacements, rendered in V-Ray. So the whole thing was displaced, pure geometry to create all those coils around his body. All the depth of field was, being animated and all within V-Ray along with the environments. So.
I know you said someone cleaned up your nuke script, but let's face it, like to pull off something like this, it is complicated, right? I mean, I really applaud the fact that you're not pulling any punches because it's not simple to get this quality of stuff. But by the same token.
Well, yeah, I mean, the thing is like Nuke's more of it's like a workbench in the garage, you know. I mean, I never did really see Nuke as just a compositor. It's more than just a compositor. It's like your foundation, for the creative process. Period, you know. And especially with heavy CG compositing, like there's no way we'd be able to do like this quickly all the CG with V-Ray and any other compositing package. You know, I mean, if you have one or know one that can do it quicker, let me know. I'll try it out, but it's great. It's a great workflow.
I'm a huge fan, man. So thank you so much for talking to us. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
So you guys gonna give this guy a round of applause? Hang around. There's some really great stuff coming up later on the Foundry, and I'm sure they're happy to talk to you at the back. It's the people with the hip T-shirts that if you ask them, they'll give you one. And one more hat going out the back. Oh, okay, down the front. Thanks, Scott, man. Appreciate it. Really good.
Thank you. Oh yeah, definitely.
FX Guide TV Live from NAB 2012 is sponsored by The Foundry, developers of creative tools for artists, including Nuke, Hero, Mari, and more. This netcast is also made possible through the contributions of our FX Insider members.
Welcome to FX Guide Live from the Foundry booth at the NAB convention in Las Vegas. 800,000 square feet or 14 football fields of tech in 5 halls with over 1,600 exhibitors for 4 days. And we're going to bring it all to you in just 1 day. Today. Well, the best bits anyway.
From NAB, John Montgomery with you, taking a bit of a break before we go to more coverage. And I just want to point out really a huge thanks to our FX Insider members. You saw that in part of the opening bumper that we just showed. And it really means a lot to us. As Mike mentioned earlier, we're so enthralled with the support you guys give. It really helps us do things like this, things like the iPad app, and frankly all the other shows we're doing. We're going to go to FMX this year, we're going to go to SIGGRAPH, and even SIGGRAPH Asia. So any bit of your support, thanks so much for helping. If you haven't donated anything or contributed, there are links right on the live view page you're watching now. And one other thing, I want to thank a good friend of ours, Andreas. Interdubs joined us yesterday as a platinum sponsor. Really excited about that, the kind of support that he's showing for us. He's enjoyed FX Guide for the year, so thanks so much, Andreas. We actually use him for FX PhD internally, as well as the folks at Hootenanny as well. So really big fans of his. So I just want to give you a bit of a rundown of what to expect coming up in the next couple of hours. So you have an idea of what to watch. Coming next is going to be the RC Live. That's coming up next. And then in about an hour, 40 minutes, hour, 50 minutes, we have an interview with the folks from Adobe SpeedGrade, as well as Premiere Pro. In 2 hours, back on the Foundry booth with Chris Martin from March Entertainment, Nuke, and Hero. A little bit of an interview that's not on there, a last-minute addition for the guys from PF Track as well. And then coming back, more from the Foundry booth, including Nuke, Digital Domain, and the girl with the dragon tattoo. So it's going to be a great thing. And by popular demand, we're actually going to extend our netcast, probably about half an hour and 40 minutes. And Jeff Hughes is going to come back for an encore presentation for both Hero and Nuke, and we're really excited about that. Well, one big thing that we do is in our FX Guide family of websites is FX PhD, and we just started a new term in the beginning of April. It's had a really great success. We've got a wide variety of courses. If you've been watching, you saw earlier on we have some great After Effects and motion graphics design-based courses. But now, let's go ahead and hear more about what we've got running right now in the April term at FX PhD. Our Cinema 4D curriculum has been incredibly popular here at FX PhD, and that's in large part due to the popularity of Tim Clapham, one of our members' favorite profs. Now, Tim is back this term to effectively do a remix of sorts on 2 of the courses he did in the past, combining them into one new course that takes into account changes that have done in the software since he first recorded the originals.
Hey everyone, Tim Clapham here with a quick rundown of the Cinema 4D and After Effects course that I'll be taking this term on FX PhD. Now primarily aimed at Cinema 4D, where we'll of course be crossing over into After Effects every now and then, specifically to look at things like transferring our camera data over and also working with multi-pass rendering. Now this course is actually based on 2 older courses, Cinema 4D 203 and Cinema 4D 205, and we felt that those classes or those courses were becoming a little bit old and some of the information in them was no longer relevant. For instance, there were a couple of classes on building a stereoscopic rig within Cinema 4D, and now of course with release 12 I believe it was, it comes with a stereo rig included, and it also supports stereo rendering, so those classes are basically redundant. And we also thought it would be a good idea to update some of the other classes which were becoming out of date. Here is such an example, and in a previous course we had a couple of classes that were an exploration of lighting principles and their application within Cinema 4D. Now of course Cinema 4D has a new physical renderer, it also supports linear workflow, so all of these lighting classes have been updated with new content to keep in line with the changes in the application. And this does of course cover rendering out multipass separate light passes and taking those over to After Effects and making sure that we have all our color management set up so that our compositing pipeline stays coherent and works correctly. Throughout the term there'll be a combination of both project and workshop based classes, such as this workshop based class that we'll be taking covering the Sketch and Tomb module so that we can create non-photo realistic renderers. We'll also be taking a workshop class which will cover animating cameras, and we'll build a camera rig that you can use in your own projects. For project-based classes, there's a couple that span over several weeks that we'll be taking. For example, here we will animate this 70s logo using a combination of MoGraph and effectors, and we'll then take the camera information and render it out as multipass. We'll take that into After Effects and we'll add some effects within After Effects. We'll also take a class where we'll model all of these speakers so that it will have a bank of speakers that says the word music, and this is then animated in time to audio using a combination of MoGraph and Espresso. So it should be a really fun course. I'm looking forward to taking it. I hope you guys are too. See you on the forums. Thanks very much.
Okay, so we're on the wind-swept eastmost side of Tasmania. Now, you may not believe it, but down this road is some of the most interesting coral and undersea anemones, sort of range of wild, extraordinary biodiversity you're ever going to find. You'd think in Australia we'd go up to Queensland, but no, we've come down here to shoot down at about 40 meters or over 100 feet to get Aaron some really interesting stuff for his Nuke course.
Hi, this is Randy Noor, and I'd like to talk a little about the new Nuke and Digital Environments course. It's going to be a combo course where we use Nuke as our main compositing platform, but we also go into other software like Vue, Maya and Blender to create elements for our comps. We'll be focusing primarily on the art and techniques of integrating CG elements into photographic environments. So we'll be dealing a lot with atmospheric effects, volumetrics, color matching, light, depth and so forth. We'll also take a close look at Nuke's fantastic 2.5D relighting capabilities, and also go over advanced extraction techniques like the IBK primate combo and hair extraction. Outside of Nuke, we'll use Vue for mountains, rocks, and other natural elements. Blender has some cool smoke simulation and particle tools, so we'll take a look at that. And we'll also use Maya's paint effects for animated plants. Now, in the last third of the course, we're going to work on a big underwater project. I think this will be the definite highlight of the course, because we're going to use some fantastic footage that was shot by Mike and his team with an all-new Red Epic rig. And for this project, we will be joined by a great matte painter, my friend and colleague Matthew Connor, who will help us with the matte painting and will also give us some really valuable insight on the process. So it's going to be a feature-packed course, and I'm really excited and looking forward to it.
With the release of Houdini 12 and to celebrate 25 years for Side Effects Software, we're really stoked to introduce a new series of introductory Houdini courses this term at FX PhD. Now, both courses are being taught by John Moncrief, who's taught courses for us in the past, and members have really liked his classes. Let's hear from him what he's got planned for the first of two introductory courses.
If you're a CG artist who's worked in other packages and you've always been curious about Houdini, or if you're just wanting to brush up on your core skills and learn some of the new techniques and workflows in Houdini 12, then this is the class for you. This course will be covering the fundamentals of Houdini. First, we'll learn the basic concepts and workflow of Houdini, thinking procedurally, understanding some of the benefits that Houdini offers over other packages, and then we'll work through the different concepts of the software by creating specific effects and solving real-world production problems. The majority of the concepts of this course apply to any version of Houdini. However, this course will be taught using Houdini 12, and we'll take a specific focus on the workflow techniques and improvements available in this new version. We'll start off by discussing the contexts of Houdini, SOPs, POPs, CHOPs, ROPs, and we'll see how these different contexts can be used together to provide a truly procedural workflow. Next, we'll dig into the user interface, covering workspaces, panes, views, and shelf tools. Then we'll begin to look at the basic concepts of lighting, shading, and rendering. We'll discuss the different options that you have inside of the Mantra ROP for rendering, and we'll discuss various lighting types and how they're best used. Then we're going to explore the world of VOPs and truly get into visual programming concepts. We will also discuss Houdini digital assets and tool building skills. We'll cover the world of Houdini particles. We also cover rigid body dynamics, specifically looking at the new bullet solver in version 12. And then we discuss fluids, voxels, SPH, and flip simulations. We'll cover the new sourcing methods in Houdini 12, and we'll distill the most influential parameters from Houdini 12's new preferred solver, the Flip Solver. We also cover Pyro 2.0, and we'll look at a simple Pyro simulation starting with the basic nodes and continue to study the new sourcing system in Houdini 12 while looking at shredding, clustering, and time scaling. So if you're brand new to Houdini, or if you're just brand new to Houdini version 12, this course should have something to offer for you. I hope you're excited and ready to hit the ground running. I know I am. So let's go ahead and dig into the Houdini Fundamentals course.
Really quickly.
That's me.
It is you. It's Jason looking.
Welcome to Live TV and the RC Live here at NAB 2012.
So, Jason, why on earth are you wearing these ridiculous glasses?
What ridiculous glasses? Oh, these! This is, they are called, they're called Pivot Head. This is
Pivot Head.
Yep.
Are they just
you
dorky
on,
glasses, or are they just? Cool glasses.
You're on camera, and now you're on camera, and Todd's on camera. The 1080p glasses.
They're 1080p glasses.
Yeah. Can you see the camera? How ridiculous do I look at this stage? Should I take it off?
You look a little ridiculous.
I mean, they're just about to come out. They're only about $300. Essentially, it's a GoPro in glasses. Try them on.
Right.
I think you should look at it as ridiculous as I do.
Oh, they've got little LEDs and stuff.
Yeah,
I don't
you
want to
are
look that
recording.
ridiculous.
You are recording.
And this is the lens here?
Right in the middle.
Okay, so this is
an
just
8 megapixel camera. It'll do
8 megapixel.
8 megapixel camera. It's doing 1080p.
How much does this cost?
It $350.
Okay.
It'll do 50, 60p at 720p, and record for an hour.
But I would actually hasten to say, Jason, that wasn't
of all the stuff around here, I've picked up this most.
No, I was going to say, you've got even because we're obviously going to do some really serious stuff in a minute. We're going to talk to Ari. We're going to talk about the amazing stuff that's buzzing around the Black Magic camera and Red and a bunch of other stuff. But you've actually found even something funkier in the camera lineup than that, and I thought that would be impossible.
Yeah, I mean, there's always something. If you dive into all the little corners around here, you're always going to find something crazy. And I found this thing called GuardBot. It's not necessarily new technology, but it's technology that they're going to start bringing into the broadcast field. It started off essentially as being almost like a mobile security guard camera, and it ended up being something that they're going to potentially develop to be on broadcast. And it's got essentially it's a big big huge rubber wheel. It's about the size of a car tire, and on either side of it, in domes, it's got stabilized, at the moment, just standard def cameras. But when they really get this going and put some better cameras and better stabilization in it, it's going to have fantastic application for on the golf green, right? At the moment, this is terrific for like the sideline of football games, like fan cam or security patrols. This particular one, they had it painted up like a big American football, and you can just record. You can just control it from the sidelines with like a little, almost like a PlayStation joystick thing, all wirelessly, of course. And it also, the crazy thing about it is it's actually amphibious. So you can go take it down the beach and drive it into the water, and this thing actually essentially swims. It's completely nuts.
Seriously, if you hadn't seen this here, I'd have said this was a YouTube video
mock-up. It is bizarre. But hopefully, I mean, can you imagine this like on, I'm a golf fan, but if you imagine this on the golf green, you will always have this fantastic POV right down by the ball. You'll get to see the contour of the green and the putting, and when they get the stabilization better, you can actually start doing some really good tracking shots. I think it's really cool.
Yeah,
if it was a little bit bigger, I'd put the Epic in it and use it tomorrow.
The other advantage of this
swimming.
thing, well, okay. The other thing about this, though, is if you were doing some stunt work, you could get this doing a very complex tracking shot,
yeah.
and there's no risk of hurting anyone, because obviously you don't want to crash this, but you could run a
It's
truck
completely
into it by
robust.
accident.
The US Army's very interested in it. Obviously, sports are interested in it. Live broadcast is interested in it.
How many pounds per inch pressure do you have to suck those?
I don't know. But you can literally kick it away. You could smash it, and it's designed to also be, quite mil-spec and, throw it off a building.
Okay, well, we're obviously here at NAB, and I guess in the last couple of years we've seen a huge growth in camera tech and stuff here at NAB. I guess in the old days I used to think of it really as a post-show, and the television stuff was all the cameras. We've seen this melding where we've got a lot of the indie filmmakers here, and we've seen a lot of those in and around the show since we've been here. There's some good stuff. You've got Timescapes tonight.
Timescape screening tonight. Finally finished this film. Looking forward to seeing that finally. The Blu-ray, I'm sure you can go to timescapes.org or .com and start ordering the Blu-ray for it. It's out soon. It's gorgeous work.
Okay, so one of the biggest camera manufacturers here at the show is, of course, Arri. Now, they've Arri Lighting, Arri, a whole bunch of stuff. But we wanted to talk to Arri because Alexa, I guess, has become such a key camera in the marketplace, and we've covered it extensively already.
Yeah, we talked about what has made it so popular, and it's been so strong for them. They've kind of expanded the range and added a camera into the range. What we saw was a couple of new cameras, which had been previously just been mock-ups, and because the range had been so strong, they kept adding stuff, particularly towards anamorphic. Congratulations on another great year for Arri and for Alexa. It's been a fantastic year for Alexa with Hugo, which won the Old Academy Award. Extremely loud, incredibly close, and Hunger Games, lots of things. So it's done some beautiful work. But now we're adding another camera to the range.
Yes, we have the Alexa Plus 4x3, which brings us up to 5 different Alexa camera models. And the Plus 4x3 is very similar to the Alexa Plus, except we're using the whole 4x3 area of the sensor.
Now, so this really hasn't been, apart from the Alexa Studio, which we will touch on, we haven't really had a full Academy sensor before for digital camera.
That is correct. Most digital cameras right now use a 16:9 sensor or even a 2:1, a wider sensor. And the Alexa range of cameras really is the only range of cameras that has a 4x3 sensor, which of course is perfect for anamorphic lenses.
Which is very close to my heart. So one of the problems, of course, with anamorphic photography up till now really has been a real scarcity of glass, particularly if you're not shooting in the States where there is at least some glass. It's been very hard to get anamorphic glass. What you used to have a range of lenses called Arri Scope, and that's sort of added to the choices. But I think now there's potentially an option in the wind from you guys.
Yes, that's correct. We've been working together with Zeiss, and we're showing a concept lens here that we're planning on introducing a range of anamorphic prime lenses at IBC. We have one lens here that people can take a look at, but we're really not revealing very much until IBC. It's just we are doing it, we're on the way there.
Right, so this is one of a set of lenses to come.
Yeah.
Excellent. So why do we need the Alexa Plus 4x3?
It's a perfect companion camera to the Alexa Studio. You're going to have a lot of feature films that will want to shoot with the Alexa Studio with anamorphic lenses, but you need a B camera to that Alexa Studio A camera, and the perfect B camera is the Alexa Plus 4x3. Or you may have features that can't afford the Alexa Studio, and they're going to shoot anamorphic with the Plus 4x3. Now, one thing that bears mentioning is we've also had some interest from people who want to shoot with spherical lenses on a 4x3 sensor, because they can then do repositioning on the image.
Right, like a classic piece of 35mm.
Exactly.
What we're also seeing today, the first time on a show, the Alexa Studio has really finally been out in the open.
Yes, that is correct. Last year we were here with a wooden model, and in December we started shipping the first cameras, and since then they've been used on a lot of shows. The new Bond movie is being shot with Alexa Studios. World War Z was partially shot with Alexa Studios. The Lone Ranger is being shot with Alexa Studios. So it's going pretty well. We're making them as fast as we can, and we have one now here at the show.
Now, I don't think Skyfall is shooting anamorphically though. I think
no, they're shooting with master primes, spherically.
So why was there, I'm sure it's quite complicated to make, why go to the incredible trouble of making an optical viewfinder digital camera?
You're not the only one to ask that question, internally and externally.
I mean, I'm really glad you've made it. I just,
personally, I think it's part of Arri's DNA. It's part of the history, but it also gives the cameraman another choice. A lot of cameramen love the optical viewfinder. It gives them an image without the delay. They see perfect color. A lot of cameramen have calibrated their eye and their whole visual system to the optical viewfinder, and we wanted to give those cameramen another option.
Another camera that we didn't see last year, which is a bit of a mock-up, we're now seeing in the flesh, is the Alexa M. What was the motivation for essentially getting an Alexa and cutting its head off?
Well, the interesting thing is when we started the Alexa project, we drew up a big master plan of everything we wanted to do. And that included the studio, that included the Alexa Plus 4x3 and a lot of other cameras, including a separate head. Now, going through the Alexa project, we were always unsure if there really is a need for a camera with a separate head or not. And then James Cameron and Vince Pace came to us and said, we really need a small and lightweight camera head for the 3D rigs. And we said, you know what, that's the trigger. We're going to build this thing. We have brought a lot of them to Cameron Pace. They've been working with us closely on the prototypes. And now the camera is out. We're actually starting to sell it next month. And we've already seen a number of tests where people have mounted it underneath railroad cars, underneath cars. It's been used on a Steadicam for handheld, in helicopter shoots a lot. A lot of the aerial guys are very interested in it. So I don't think we're going to be selling as many of the M as we do of the regular Alexa, but it does have its niche, and it makes the Alexa family a lot more versatile.
There's a couple of new codecs, is that right?
Yes, we're going to have a ProRes 4x3 codec, which is 2048 by 1536 pixels, and that'll allow you to record an anamorphic image in 4x3 directly onto a ProRes card, so you won't need an external recorder. And we're also going to have ProRes 2K, which is 2048 by 1152, so that's 16 by 9 ProRes. If you're shooting a feature film on ProRes, which some people have done already, even with ProRes HD, Rampart, for instance, was shot that way. And we think that'll help the Alexa, it'll help a lot of people shoot feature films on ProRes who can't afford the external recorder. That said, we of course always recommend to shoot ARRI RAW because it is the best unencrypted, uncompressed image format there is.
And the highest resolution.
And the highest resolution, yes.
Can I talk about film cameras?
Sure.
You still make them, I guess.
We still make them, we still sell them, not as many as we used to, unfortunately, but we do. And we just made a commitment to still support film for at least the next 10 years, in terms of the film cameras, but also in terms of the ARRI laser and the ARRI scan.
So people are still buying them, that's great.
People are still buying, but it's a dribble rather than a flood, whereas with the Alexa right now, it is a flood.
So it's been another big year, as it was last year, for digital cinematography. There's a lot of new stuff out on the show, including from camera manufacturers who weren't camera manufacturers last week. A lot of competition, and it's a very fast changing field. Where does ARRI stand in that, and what's next for you guys?
Well, we're trying to not have fast change. We consider ourselves in the business of allowing our customers to earn a living, to make money. And so we're shooting for really long product cycles. So we are supporting the Alexa line of cameras. By now we have 5 different models. We have a number of new software features cooking for the Alexa. And throughout this year and next year, we'll be introducing new features with the Alexa to keep the camera current and up to date and allow people to have some peace and make their money back with this camera.
Because you've made, obviously, like the Alexa was upgradable to the Alexa Plus.
Yes.
It's always a path of upgradable. Yeah. At the moment, Alexa is 2.5K max. There's a lot of 4K around. I guess, is there, looking forward to, probably can't say much, but is there a plan to start heading in that direction?
You know what? The thing is, there's no free lunch. So if you put more pixels into the same space, the pixel gets smaller, and you lose exposure latitude, you lose sensitivity, you increase noise, all kinds of things happen. And we very purposefully said, what makes a good picture? And we believe that exposure latitude is actually more important than all that resolution. And as long as you have enough resolution to not show any artifacts, get the biggest pixels you can, get the exposure latitude, and you get better pictures. And I think all the feature films, all the commercials, everything shot with the Alexa is proving us right in that.
Well, that has been the proof of the pudding. People have flocked to Alexa because of its picture quality, so I guess you got something right. Excellent. Well, I'll see you again next year for, I'm sure, another great year of announcements, and I'm sure some more awards.
Great. Thank you very much.
Okay. So look, obviously ARRI, it's terrific, and we appreciate those guys taking time to talk to us, especially as they're doing booth setup. But wouldn't be RC if we didn't discuss Red. And I've got to say, we're going to come back around to the Red user party at maybe the end of this bit. But I expected a lot of announcements on the show floor, and they actually happened at kind of midnight the night before.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. When we went to the party, we were expecting a lot of announcements, and it was, it was a crowded room. It was a full-on party, a big screening room, and it was terrific. And it was a great presentation from Michael Ciani and from Jim himself. But no announcements at that night, and then when we all went home, then the announcements started.
In our case,
pouring
actually went out to dinner and ended up.
And you were on Twitter going, "Oh my God, we're just in the room," and they didn't give us any good juicy details, but it was all on Twitter while we were having dinner.
Okay.
The biggest thing, I guess, I suppose we were most expecting was some more details on Red Dragon, pricing, availability, and what the specs were going to be.
Okay, so the first thing is I actually get to speak to Jim personally, and I asked him, is this whole thing with the Dragon, the Monstro, did they just change the name? And he said no. No, he said this is an interim step to Monstro. So in the early days we bought the camera, Epic came out, the idea was we'd have the sensor, the MX, we'd go to Monstro. That is now Monstro via the Dragon. So I presume that this will be one of 2 upgrades to an Epic that would get you to what you want. So
it kind of makes sense.
That being said, let me kind of play, I don't know, host to you and say,
I know what you're going to ask.
It's $6 grand. Are you going to upgrade your camera?
I don't. At the moment, I don't think I am. I'm not sure. I think it's a little bit of an incremental change. It's a little bit of change in frames per second. It's a little bit of a change in field of view and a larger sensor. A little bit more resolution and more dynamic range. So it's little, little changes.
The third one there, the last one on that list was dynamic range. Isn't that the most important one?
I guess dynamic, but I'm finding the dynamic range is really good. The more I shoot with Epic, the more I'm sort of seeing, what I'm seeing is what I'm getting. I'm so used to with DSLRs, if I'm seeing highlights, I'm sort of protecting them a bit, but I'm so used to now with the bomb, what I'm seeing in the EVF is,
I love
really
Epic,
nice highlights.
I just got a 5D Mark III, and I got to say the higher ISO is just addictive.
True. Well, that wasn't touched on so much that we're going to get a much higher ISO, much better sensitivity, much better, less noisy blacks. That wasn't really touched on, was it really? It was the fact that we had a larger sensor. So the Epic at the moment is a 1.4 crop. So it's sort of halfway between, like a Red 1 would have been 1.6 crop, and of course our 5D is 1:1. So it's sort of 1.4, and the I'm not saying Monstro, sorry. The Red Dragon is 1.2, so it's halfway. The new chip will be halfway between where Epic is now and the full frame, which is what I'm hanging out for on a 5D.
Do you know many people that had a Red one and didn't go to MX?
No, this is true. A lot of people did, and if you didn't, you're kind of like stuck with this non-MX thing. Non-MX camera is a little bit hard to get rid of if you wanted to. I certainly will do it. I'd love to know how long it's going to be till we get the full-on Monstro, which I'm presuming, if this is an interim step, then the next step logically would be full frame. So that's what I'm sort of hanging on to. But as I say, the more I shoot with the Epic, I'm really liking the fact that it is shallower depth. It is a bit more. It is that getting close to that full frame look.
Well, we're shooting with Epics here. In fact, I have 3 around me right now. I've got basically Epic here. I've got an Epic here. And I've got one on shoulder mount, which is actually a Scarlet, I think, is over here.
Scarlet's here.
What's kind of interesting is that we actually punched one of our Epics to 3K because we wanted actually a longer lens, and we didn't have a longer lens in our bag. And so we just went from 5K to 3K. Of course, what you guys are watching is 720p, or effectively around that kind of size. So it didn't matter in the slightest. Okay, so before we get off the cameras, because there is a bunch of other stuff from Red alone, there was a bunch of other bits and pieces up the back end, clip-ons, add-ons,
well, hang on,
modules.
you're going to go... So backing up, same question back at you. You're going to immediately go to Red Dragon? Yeah. Okay. Yep. 6K for 6K. Do it. And it's that is by the end of the year for Epics.
Epics, not Scarlet. Okay.
Yep.
Now, the question you should ask is, would I upgrade my Scarlet? And that's a hard question, because I would have to do the full upgrade to take it to Epic specs and then to... So I think I may not update the Scarlet, definitely doing the Epic.
And Scarlet's going to be updated a little bit later than Epics
That's
are
next
anyway.
year, yeah. But you know what I mean? Like, you can't just put the Dragon chip in. I believe you have to lift all the specs and then put the Dragon. So it'd be a more expensive upgrade.
Yeah, a price which we don't know yet.
Okay, but let's get to some of this other stuff. Now, some of it was sort of announced, but one bit of it wasn't announced, which is the wireless device. And I think we've got some pictures of that. And that wireless device is basically a clip-on module at the back of the camera, and it's just not that big.
I was one of the two things I was here to shop for on the floor was a wireless a solution that would work specifically with Epic, and this is obviously one of that. So I was hoping it would be quite a small module. I wasn't expecting to see this. I was hoping to see just the Meisler module.
Well, that's the base station.
That's the receiver. Now, there's no antenna on that at the moment. What the guys were, I was speaking directly to the guys who are developing it,
yep.
and they're saying it's probably like a couple of 100 feet, not even line of sight at the moment, without even an antenna on the base station. If they're still not sure about it, they might even put an external antenna on the receiver box, and that'll give them another 6 dB. And he said that might even get them to 3,000 feet.
Okay,
this
now,
is not Wi-Fi.
This
okay,
actually
this is not
works.
Wi-Fi.
This actually works because we've got a shot, actually bad shot in terms of the image quality of me, but it was working because I went in front of it, and actually Jace was filming and taking shots of the monitor. So
yeah, well, they got
that's
the live
a live
link.
shot.
Yeah, they got the live link here
on
the stand, and it's beautiful, crystal clear, virtually zero latency. I couldn't see any latency. Crystal clear 1080p. There's no sort of 720 rubbish, and yeah, it's no price and a few months. All we were told.
Okay.
And no price. But the interesting thing that we were hoping to find out with the Meisler module, which is the larger, more pro wireless setup, which is to go with 3D and multiple monitors and audio and video backwards and forwards. I was thinking it was going to be like this massive $30,000 item, big boys toys, and here on the stand they've announced that's about $13K. So that sort of bodes well for the smaller wireless.
To be less than that, right?
To be less than that, but to be less than I had imagined. So I'm hoping for sub 5K.
And I should point out, even here at the show, you were testing with me somewhat comically how far your red mote was working since it's been upgraded.
Because I upgraded it and I just got it back. Basically, I'd done all the sort of firmware tests, and there was I was getting about 8-10 feet on the red mote, and there's a lot of people who have this same issue.
I get
so I was doing it by the numbers. I was doing exactly as Red said. Do all the firmware updates. Nothing's happening. Okay, you have to send it back in. So I picked up the camera while I was here, and I was dying to test it to see what I was doing. In this sort of Wi-Fi and sort of wireless soup that is NAB, I mean, you couldn't even see me. I was like 80, 90 feet away, kind of line of sight. But there's a lot of. I was going to shout, Mike. Can you check my camera's rolling? And I thought, he's not even going to hear me. So I had to ring him and say, is it rolling? Yes, it's rolling. Is it cutting? So it working really well. So advice is, don't stuff around. Just get your camera in. They freighted it to Red and back from Australia for free. And so, yeah, just do it. They've changed something with the antenna on the body itself. I didn't have to swap the Red mode over. But, yeah, you go from 8 feet to 80 plus. So
okay, so what else have we seen that was announced? There's some extra IO-y kind of modules.
Yeah, a couple of really good. And one that we wasn't expecting was the, I think it's called the +1 module adapter, which is, well, we've got finally sort of got final pricing and availability on the Pro IO adapter, which is this one here. And that was good to see that in the flesh in its final configuration. And that's one of the things people are really keen for is extra SDI outs and to have DC out, to have power out, and to have the ability to run an LCD and an EVF. But one of the other adapters which will do sort of to this a bit of that and help that solution is what's called the +1 module adapter, which is this little one here. And that is actually have a bit of DC out, but also will give you that extra viewfinder EVF thing, and in quite a small little module. That's genius. I wasn't expecting it, but it makes complete sense. I don't know if we've got a price. We don't have a price for that yet. But just to get DC out, if you want to run a small HD, another monitor, a transmitter of some kind, whatever, focus motor, something like that is really needed, and in something that doesn't make the camera too big. We've found with the big quad battery adapter thing, which maybe hasn't sold quite so well.
I don't want the quad adapter.
No, I had one and I got rid of it.
I'll go for a V-Lock.
People don't want to make these cameras too big. We have the ability to make them really big, but anything that's really large, it sort of stays on the store.
Okay, so I'm going to jump now from the cameras to the other big thing that was being shown here, but not really like, I guess, like, I mean, they were sort of being shown, but there was like a whole lot of them. There was like one under glass. And I'm talking about the projectors and the red rays. we've been asking about these. We've been following up. Last year we spoke to Ted about them deliberately to see if they were still in the pipe, and they are. This is the only sort of one that I could see to photograph, which is the laser projector. It's under glass here, but in fact there's one working.
There is one working. This is sort of a mock-up of the exterior and what it's going to look like. That is a lot. If this is the $10,000 projector, right?
We haven't got a confirmed price.
No,
but
well,
the theory is that
it's
a 4K projector. Obviously, do 2 and 3D, and it runs at pretty high frame rates. Actually, the laser projector.
But the main thing is, I mean, that looks like a lot of projector for 10K.
Okay, yeah, I mean, actually, I say that, but then on the bloody sign it says that it's 10K. But there you go.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
maybe it's 10K without a lens.
What's that?
Maybe it's 10K without a lens.
You're right. That's going. That looks like a red prime or something on the front of it.
Okay, and then there's also the red
So
ray.
yeah, they were projecting in the booth a really beautiful 4K 3D short
Loom?
Called Loom by Luke Scott, another one of the really successful sons of Ridley, and it looks beautiful and 3D, as I say, in 4K, because not a lot of 3D is actually happening in 4K, which is one of the key things with this projector. Is a lot of 3D solutions are you could shoot in 4K like Spider-Man has, and but when you get to actually projecting, because projectors do some projectors aren't necessarily set up to do it, you'll get like 2K per eye.
Okay,
right?
That being said, we can say that Jason and I were at Sony Pictures Imageworks and got to see some stuff from Spider-Man projected on their Sony 4K projector. And Sony knows how to make a projector, because I don't care what resolution. I mean, just seriously, I don't give a rat's about what the bloody specs were. Spider-Man looked gorgeous.
It did look good. It looked really good. But even in that setup, you're sometimes getting 2K per eye.
But did you sense that was in any way a compromise? I just thought it looked freaking awesome.
My first takeout was that the 3D is really, I guess, a really deep 3D. It's a really, you really get a sense of the 3D. I guess that's not necessarily because of 5K, but also because maybe that there is a natural depth in there. There's a natural depth of field because you're shooting with a reasonably large sensor, and because it's a lot of 3D gets shot in smaller sensor or 2/3 inch sensor or on Genesis, etc., or F23s. So I think a lot of that extra depth comes from the larger sensor. That was my first big takeout. So the 3D is really gorgeous.
And another film that looks absolutely gorgeous that obviously isn't out yet is Prometheus. We mentioned before Ridley Scott. So Ridley was actually on video, on like film, projected at 4K at the Red User event. Now, we mentioned this at the outset. There's a Red User event the night before the show opened. We expected announcements, didn't get it. What we did get was the other really incredibly impressive short film that we... So Loom, yeah, that's great. And take nothing away from anything that's Ridley Scott related or his family. But the other film that impressed the friggin' bajillikins out of me and you, like we were down the front, this is projected up. You know, I should stop talking about it. We should show the guys, because this is unbelievably cool. We saw this the night, projected in 4K. Obviously, it's not 4K to you now. I wish you could see this in 4K. But even in like whatever resolution you're watching it in right now, you'll appreciate how gorgeous this is. And when we come back from this clip, we actually have the filmmaker here to talk to us.